check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
You're no messiah. You're a movie of the week. You're a fucking podcast at best.
Very good.
Thank
Do you
you.
have more? I don't know. I figured you might have more here. What's in the pod?
Yeah. Say, wait, I thought all you did was kill innocent podcast, David.
Wait, I thought all you did was kill innocent podcasts.
Innocent. Is that supposed to be funny?
I really thought I was going to guess this one.
Oh,
I had
really?
It
Okay.
locked and loaded. I thought you were going to do the final line of the movie. Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine podcast and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
That's fucking good, Wags.
Or the podcast is a fine place and worth fighting for. I don't know, a lot of ways to play it. Worth podcasting.
You know what that is right now, Wiger?
Yeah.
That's the juice of a man who, out of solidarity with the Writers Guild strike, has not been writing intros for his own podcast for several months.
That's true.
You have excess energy. I feel depleted.
And why are you depleted?
I just finished doing too many shows at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. My brain is trash.
Too many.
Too many. Can I say it officially? Too many shows.
Too many shows.
Too many shows.
Yeah, you're Josh Hartnett at the end of 30 days and 30 nights.
Mitch, he went 40 days. And we were talking
Is it 40
Hartnett
days?
Mitch, we were talking Hartnett
This
for
is
like 10
wild.
minutes.
This is
before you
insane.
showed up.
Mitch was understandably late. No one's mad at him. He's
understandable.
dealing with some intestinal distress. It happens to everyone.
I want to say actually.
Did you not want me to say that?
No,
We can
no,
edit that out.
it's fine.
We
It's
can
fine.
edit
It's
that
fine.
out.
No, it's fine.
I'm sorry,
Wiger,
Mitch.
don't speak for me when you say understandable. If there's anything I'm not sympathetic to, it's people being late, not communicating why they're late because of stomach issues. These are things I have no experience with, and I detest in other people. Go on.
But before you arrived, we had an extended conversation about Josh Hartnett and specifically cited 40 Days and 40 Nights as maybe like, is that his big movie? Is that what he's known
right.
for?
Like,
Was that
what-
his peak? Is
Mitch,
that a depressing
what do you think
peak?
Hartnett's
Defining
signature film is?
Yeah, signature film is the term.
The Faculty, is he in that?
Oh, fuck, that's the answer.
Is it though?
Yes,
Wow.
that's the answer.
But that's
the
wild.
answer.
That's one of his
Yes.
first things.
But it is. That's what he was cashing checks on.
yeah.
This is why we need you here. This is why we couldn't do this episode
this is
before
why
you
we couldn't do
arrived.
this
No,
episode.
that's
And it was great
totally
to arrive here, and then there was a group of beautiful people I don't know sitting outside the bathroom, which is great. For
They
in
all
case
had
anything
old-timey
happens.
ear trumpets
Yeah.
pointed towards the bathroom.
When you walked out of the bathroom, they scurried to put their empty water glasses back on the shelf as if they hadn't been using them to listen on the other side of the door.
I was already depressed, and I walked in. I was like, "Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me!" Because you told me that there was. First of all, you texted me and said there's only one bathroom today, which
Yeah,
I was
one of
like,
the bathrooms
"Oh
is
God,
broken."
this is awful." And then just seeing the crew here, I was like, "God damn it!"
For
I'm just gonna look
listeners-
like a monster. That's all I'm afraid of.
For listeners, Mitch and I are at our podcast network's Headgum's office in LA, and we're doing this remotely, but we're together in LA,
Yes.
and the studio is uncharacteristically bustling today.
Yeah, which means that there's more than like
Yeah.
me, you, and Casey in here, basically.
It's the post outside. They're just fucking.
I don't know if we want to say who it was, but one of our guests recently broke our toilet.
Yes, he did. He did. Not with digestive force.
No.
With his hands by
Yes.
mistake. And we really should introduce the podcast.
Yeah, this is Blank Check with Griffin and
Okay.
David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear. Sometimes they bounce, baby. This is a mini-series on the films of David Fincher. It's called The Curious Pod of Benjamin Buttcast.
That's right.
Today we're talking about the movie Se7en with the Doughboys, Nick Wiger, Mike Mitchell. So recently a guest broke our toilet.
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to get that out of the way as quickly as possible. The intro, so I could get back to the most important
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Our broken toilet, which has since been fixed. But we record in like a windowless box.
It's a big box.
Right. Now, a luxury of it is we do have our own bathroom,
Yes. It's right there.
but it's right there. We're pointing right over here.
So if you're going to the bathroom, you're
Yeah.
kind of going to the bathroom in the room.
Oh,
Yeah.
Basically.
dear God.
It's a guest on an episode yet to come, but has been recorded already. Maybe we'll reveal who it is after that episode's come out.
Mm.
But he said, "Can I use the bathroom?" We said, "Sure." Walked in, closed the door, and then we heard whoops and like a crashing sound. It was truly like a cartoon, like whoops.
Yep. And then him going, "What's happening?" Essentially, as the toilet lid fell to the ground.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Like absurd Mr. Bean effects.
Yeah.
And then like 5 minutes later, he walked out and said, "Your toilet is broken."
It was good.
It was good.
Is this was it a friend at least? Is it something that you know well?
I'd say past tense.
Yeah. Oh, friend forever.
Friend. Yes. No. A future guest. Nick and Mitch, thank you for doing this.
What a treat! I love
Thank
this
you for having us.
podcast. The four of us have become, well, the two of us with the two of you have become friends via podcasting. I
That's
feel
true.
like.
Yes.
And that's a nice little benefit of this medium.
The
I'll
blank dough text thread.
Yep. It's a great text thread.
And a popping social scene.
I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of goss dropping in the blank dough, but also a lot of takes.
Sure.
Hot takes.
I told you Gran Turismo is good yesterday. I said I
Huge.
liked Gran Turismo.
Blew up in the text thread.
I need to see that. I need to see it, right?
Yeah, no, I do think the blank dough, I've said this before, but I think the greatest utility of the blank dough text thread is it's become a great place for us to type things out instead of putting them on Twitter.
Yes, 100%. Basically
Right?
weaning me off of social media.
Right. And
Yes.
sometimes it's because it's spicy, you don't want to share it on main. And other times you're just like, this is so banal. This is the kind of banal thing I would tweet 6 years ago and I'd be fine. And if I did today, people would yell at me for reasons I cannot even fathom.
Right.
Yeah.
Our buddy Evan Susser, the commissioner of the Doughboys Tournament of Champions, for people who know our podcast, good friend, and he has been doing bespoke memes just for text threads, which I feel like is the next step of that.
Yeah, that's good.
Of like, I'm not going to put this meme on social media. I'm just going to send this to like 3 friends.
Yes. My friends Austin Rodriguez and Yoni Lotan, who I was on a UCB sketch team with for years, would do that in our group text. It was very impressive. The speed and the effort for things that would only be seen by 10 people maximum.
Right.
So here's the table setting
When
I want
the burger hits. I'm just wondering what his
when the
memes
burger
are.
hits. So speaking of memes,
Oppenheimer.
there's the account Doughboys memes. I don't know who runs this,
Oh, right. Yes.
but someone who just makes Doughboys memes.
Tried to follow me on Instagram recently. That got a delete.
Well, David.
You can't see my pics.
Okay.
No, but yes, I'm aware of him. And a good job, whoever he is.
Or she,
Sure.
or they.
Absolutely.
We just yesterday, as of the time of this recording, announced that we were doing Fincher.
Yeah.
And the Doughboys meme account posted a picture of Mark Zuckerberg in the deposition room in Social Network saying, what was the fucking... Doughboys, when they hear that Blank Check is doing the Finchman.
Right. If you wanted to be Doughboys, you'd have invented Doughboys.
Correct.
I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
You guys got there first. That's
This is
what
the table
he's saying.
setting. This is the table setting I want to do.
Well,
Okay.
we kind of stole the whole theme
we also
from
stole your
you.
format.
Well, here's the thing. We decided to do David Fincher on this podcast because he is certainly a blank check director, and he, has a new film out this year called The Killer. You guys decided to do it because May, the name of the month May,
Well, I think
kind of sounds like May.
I think we need to back
That's
up
true.
even further here. Okay.
Go ahead.
There are a number of guys on the list of like Fincher and Tarantino and whoever, where people go, how is it possible you guys have been doing this show this long and you haven't covered blank?
Sure.
Right? The guys who are so canonically huge, especially I think the guys who are really big with our generation, the sort of 90s film bro auteurs. And for some of them, it was like, well, it's good to have them in the back pocket. So if we do a couple esoteric people in a row, we know we can have like a bigger heavy hitter guy.
And also, if they've got something
PTA.
interesting.
Yes.
you
But
know?
but with some of them also, we would get into the conversation where we're like, is it worth doing Fincher? He's so discussed. Is there anything we have to add to the conversation? We both love him and his movies, but sometimes we're like, fuck, I want to do Fincher. And other times we're like, maybe we never need to do Fincher. So you guys start doing, you did one-off Fincher episode at first. Was Gone Girl the first one.
So yeah, we
Yeah.
started saying, and I don't remember the genesis of it, but we were saying we loved a Finchman. We would
Right.
say that as like that was like a guy, the we
Yeah.
loved a Finchman guy. We would
Yeah,
say
it was
just-
like a Northern European.
Yeah,
we
just-
really didn't want to say where
we didn't want to
from.
specify where the accent was from, and then we also kind of stopped doing the accent because it
We'd seen
felt
like
maybe vaguely
Right.
problematic.
Yeah, Mitch just started saying how much he loved Fincher movies in an episode, and then we loved the Finchman became
we
the
loved a Finchman.
We loved
Right.
a Finchman.
There he
yeah.
is.
Right, there
And
he is.
so
I brought the accent back.
I think he's Nordic.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
That's my
he's,
take.
he's Nordic.
He's like a
He's
cheerful Nordic guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Who like lives in the countryside.
Sven.
So he's a little he's a little
Or
rural.
tall.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so we started saying that, and then that led to people love that to the point where we have merch that I'm wearing. I never wear our
Right.
merch, but we have a We Love to Finchman shirt we made, and Kinship Goods made, and that led to us doing a Gone Girl episode. And then the Gone Girl episode, people's response to that led to us doing a theme month for Fincher called Mank,
Yeah.
Yes.
which we did
Mank.
five of his films over the course of May.
Which I was going to wear that shirt today too, and
Mhm.
truly my tummy troubles just made everything chaotic, and I just forgot
Yeah.
to put it on. I'm mad.
You did the Gone Girl app, and I think I texted in the group chat. It'd be funny if you guys piecemeal covered all the Fincher movies before we did.
Right.
That's
And
right.
it,
That's
and
what
it would
yeah, that-
remove the burden
yes.
from us.
Yes.
And I let that joke just stay in the air for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Like how Mitch let something stay in the air for a while recently.
Dear God.
Sorry. It's the last. I won't do it again. I shouldn't have done it to begin with. It's not my role in this friendship.
There was nothing you couldn't. There was not a single smell made.
Good. Not a single aroma.
Not a single smell made. By the way, I'm trying to look up something, and I'm not being rude by being on my phone, but I met Fincher's AD on the picket line. I've never talked about this, and some guy was walking up behind me. He was like, "What's that? What is that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "What's that? What's that shirt you're wearing?" And I was wearing "We Love the Finchman" shirt, and he's like, "Hold on," and he took a picture of it. And he's like, "I'm sending it to David."
Right?
Wow.
And it was Fincher's AD, whose name I'm looking up.
Is it Richard Goodwin? I'm looking up his ADs. Matt McKinnon.
I think it was I think it might have been Bob Wagner.
Bob Wagner.
I'll see.
Governor of New York in the 50s,
Hey.
of course, but probably not him.
But I tweeted that comment out, or I texted that comment to you
I
guys.
see him, yeah.
right?
And he also worked on The Empty Man.
Okay.
Very cool.
And then, like, maybe a month or two later, David and I are trying to strategize our schedule. And David goes, "Let me just pitch Fincher." Right? He said, "Just
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me
yeah, right.
make the argument.
It's time.
Slots in here with what we have, this number of weeks, new movie coming out, first movie in a couple of years, yada, yada, yada," makes the Fincher play. And I say, how much of this is you genuinely not wanting Doughboys to get all the Fincher movies out before we?
None. Not at all.
This is David's contention, okay?
No.
So then I text you guys and I go, "Hey, so I think we're gonna do Fincher. Obviously, knowing you guys love the Finchman, we'd love to have you on one of them." I think half jokingly, like, I guess we realize we want to do it before you guys get to them. And then you went, "Oh, that's funny because we just decided all of May is Fincher." So I came to you saying we were doing it right before you told me
Yes.
that you guys had committed to doing 5 in a row.
That's right. But
So-
we came to an agreement, and I think this
This is
worked
the
out
point
well
I'm building
because
to.
we're not doing. We didn't cover 7,
Yes.
and that was partly because it was largely because you said, "Would you like to do 7 on blank check?"
These two things have been coordinated for a while.
Yes,
We just plan our podcast 5 years in advance.
right.
And by the
Right.
way, the other plus side you guys have is that we're dipshits and we didn't really cover anything at all.
No,
So
I also like that you guys didn't cover Mank.
Yeah, you didn't cover
yeah,
Mank.
you're right. We didn't cover Mank.
we didn't cover
in
Mank in Mank.
Right. And you even
or
extended
in
it into
Juke.
Junk and still
yeah, we
didn't
did.
cover Mank.
We did Juke and we didn't cover. That's because we just wanted to watch one more, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, we just wanted to fit an extra movie in
I
there.
mean,
Yeah.
you guys are masters of planning in that way, though. You really do like to maximize. I mean, not since what was it? Hot Dober Fest, hot dog dough bark,
Dog Dough Bark Fest, a month-long celebration of hot dogs and pet dogs.
right? Which you did a month where you only reviewed hot dogs. a food that in that year Nick had sworn off from eating, and Mitch is infamously incapable of pronouncing.
I mean, we're idiots. We don't plan things well,
No,
and we didn't say a single good thing. I'll say this: Nick Wiger doesn't like almost anything, and he loves your guys' show. This is the truth.
I wouldn't. That you're saying I'm some sort of like a cynic.
Sorry. I don't mean
misanthrope.
I don't mean it like that.
Yeah.
I see as someone who's been in the entertainment world for a long time.
Yes.
You never get excited about things the way there's some stuff I'll get excited about that you won't care about.
Yeah.
But he gets excited about your podcast all the time. I'm not trying to say he's a man who doesn't have any joy. He does have joy.
Mitch, you're forgetting one
Full
thing
of
that
joy.
Wiger loves with his whole heart:
What's that?
the Finchman.
He
We
loves
love
the
the Finchman.
we love the
I love the
Finchman, and he loves the blank check.
Here's my question.
The Nordic guy now canonically likes a blank check too.
that guy, that
tracks.
same guy.
Yeah, that same guy.
So David said maybe you guys do 7, and then we got to the gentleman's agreement that you would hold it off of Mank. And then a couple times we said, like, by the way, if you want a different one, you want to pick a different one. I know, Wiger, you had said Zodiac's your favorite film of his. It's mine as well. It felt like that was maybe a conflict of interest for you to cover Zodiac just because you're still actively a suspect in that investigation.
Right. if nothing else, you're cribbing, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Wiger loves the Zodiac like I would love the Mike Mitchell story.
But you guys, you accepted 7, the idea of 7. Anytime we sort of throw out like alternate pitches, you kept on coming back to 7. What is the relationship both of you have to 7?
Oh man, want me to go first?
Yeah,
You probably have in a good way. You were just a year or two older than me, or whatever. I don't know how much older you are than me. I joke that you're much older, but I was like maybe 13 when I saw it.
Sure.
And saw it on VHS, and it was that thing like the kids in my middle. I mean, just in general, the world being like like a Tool and 9 Inch Nails and kind of the 90s, discovering the dark side of something. So many kids were like, you gotta see 7, and it's also still kind of being like a young. Not religious. I don't think I was a religious kid, but like the fear of God was still in me. So the idea that like these people were going to get killed by the 7 deadly sins was kind of fascinating to me. And just, like every kid that could see the movie at 13 years old or whatever, who shouldn't really be seeing it, telling me I had to see it was so hyped up. And it to me, it was like one of the big VHS tapes that I watched before I should have probably. And loved, you know what I mean? Watching it, when I watched it this time, I hadn't seen it in a really long time, and I appreciated it for different things that I did back then. But I think that I was like, I didn't know you could be so dark in entertainment, or you could make a movie that dark. I think that's what it was for me.
There is an interesting like subgenre of R-rated movies that almost feel like they're designed to be best enjoyed by a 13-year-old sneaking a viewing.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And not that like they're juvenile or that they don't have value for adults, but you're just sort of like, is there a better way to see 7 or RoboCop or The Matrix?
Right. It's just, I mean, it's the age we all are. I know we're a few years apart, but the age we're all generally, that this was just the touchstone. I've never seen a movie this fucked up movie for us.
Yes,
Like I had never seen a movie this
100%.
fucked up as 7 when I saw 7. When I was also probably 12 or something on VHS.
Yeah.
You maybe had, I don't know.
I'd seen Rugrats in Paris, which it goes to some pretty dark areas.
They are lost in Paris, so
Yes.
that's an issue.
Chucky lost his mom, which is very sad.
But like lost her, like he doesn't know where she is. She's not dead.
No, she's dead.
Is she?
Chucky's mom's canonically, yeah, it's
Is she
a
dead?
dark ass
Oh no,
movie.
right. She's dead when Rugrats begins, right? It's Chucky he has a single
Oh, does
father.
that make it better to you?
Well, it's not like it happens in Rugrats in Paris.
We have to grapple with it because his father falls in love with a new woman that's pretty fucking dark.
That is pretty dark. Okay, so Withdrawn, and obviously that's a darker film.
Yes.
But 7 is still fairly dark. I don't think there are any bladed dildos in Rugrats in Paris that I can remember.
No, they saved that for Rugrats Go Wild. It's the third movie.
Nick, what about you with 7?
Yeah, so similar to Mitch, I saw this on VHS. I was not old enough to see an R-rated movie in theater. I can't remember. I think I convinced my dad to rent it for me. And it was my way into it is kids at school had told me
Yes.
it like what's in the movie before I saw the
That
movie.
was my exact thing I
100%.
was going to say is like someone being like, dude, there's like gluttony. And then like,
there's a big fat guy and they fucking feed him spaghetti and they kick him in the stomach. He fucking explodes.
which do they talk about him kicking him in the stomach?
There is a line where they say he kicked him in the stomach to kill him, but it is a thing of like I was expecting a Monty
explosion.
Python,
Yeah.
Fat guy explosion.
Mr.
That's the
Kriya
thing.
said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all heard about it in the playground and imagined something so ridiculous for all of this stuff. It sounded like a movie that was fake to me.
Yes.
When I was 11 years old and on a school bus or whatever, and someone was like, and then he makes like this guy have sex with like a spiky penis. And I'm just like, that's not real. Hollywood didn't make that. That's not allowed.
No, and specifically that thing, I mean, connected to the thing I was bringing up of like R-rated movies that feel almost laser targeted to 13-year-old boys. This kind of thing where someone describes a movie to you and you cannot even visualize it.
Yeah.
You know, like we spent a lot of time describing movies for a living, David.
Sure.
And I think rarely do people go like, that's impossible what you're saying. They accept it at face value. But when you're like 12 or 13, you haven't seen a ton of movies. And someone describes a thing to you where you're like, I don't even understand how that happens in front of a camera.
How could they possibly show this?
Yes.
Which, you know what? Still think that when you watch when you watch some of this movie, I still wonder how they got away with some of that stuff. It's wild.
What's the not to skip ahead too far here, but like what is the worst murder? Like what is the one where you're like, that's the most brutal or the one I'd want to have the least inflicted on me? Or
I think it's the sex worker.
It's probably Lust.
Yeah.
you think it's Lust?
The lust as an
is
adult's
awful,
lust
yeah.
was like, oh, this
And
is
a lot of
this is
people are
horrible.
involved too, so
Yes.
it's kind of
Right.
like it ripples in a way that the others don't.
I think it's weirdly
someone's still alive and is aware of what happened.
the goriest and psychologically the most
Yeah.
tortured. Yes.
That one's bad. I'm trying to remember. I mean, Sloth is so nasty.
I'd be good with gluttony, honestly. I think if someone was just feeding me the sauce, I think I'd be okay.
It's like me watching Supersize Me, where I was just like, I want McDonald's. Like, this looks good. Like, that was my reaction to that movie. I think it was a
And
lot
Morgan
of people's
Spurlock being like,
reaction.
oh my God, this fry is making me sick. Shut the fuck up, Spurlock. Full of shit.
I feel like greed is pretty bad because of the psychological torment of having to cut off part of your body.
He has to cut off his own
Yeah.
flesh.
Yeah, and that's just like that's gnarly.
I think that the Sloth thing where he's still alive,
Yeah.
I remember that being like kind of the nastiest shock, right? Where he's in the bed. Or is that's Sloth, right?
Yes.
That is Sloth, yeah.
And then suddenly, and you're like, this is a corpse.
I think the playground thing, that was the thing that was the playground thing that was so hyped up.
Yeah.
For like Sloth was the
Yes.
thing that you heard of. Like gluttony and sloth were the two things that you heard about before you saw the movie.
But that's
Right.
like, I mean, like even just hearing us trying to describe this and hash this stuff out now, right?
Similar to Goonies, Gluttony and Sloth. Or
Well,
Yeah, everyone called Chunk gluttony.
yeah. The fifth sin, Corey Feldman. No, the weirdness of this movie where like if you're a kid and another kid has gotten a seat before you and he's describing it,
Right.
you're like,
Yes.
is this a horror movie? Is it like a prosthetics heavy cartoon?
Yeah.
Is it a serious crime thriller? Like, I don't understand how these things can coexist in one film, let alone a movie that adults are taking seriously.
Well, so my dad lived in the United Kingdom without us, without the rest of my family, from 1994 to 1995. He would come back every month
Wow.
because the whole thing was he got this job in England and
Okay.
he wasn't sure if he was going to stay, and then we all moved, right?
Mhm.
And I lived in England. But in that 1 year, he was living alone. And I think he saw more movies.
Oh, sure.
And so this is to me a classic. My dad actually saw this movie.
And he said, I can't wait till you move to London so I can take you to Se7en.
But I remember him telling me about it. And obviously, in a way, yes, the same way of like, you're too young for this, but I saw this crazy movie. And the way, again, I was just like, I was pretty young then. I was probably 10.
Yeah.
I was just like, you're describing something that sounds like pornography to me. Not in terms of like, just in terms of like, this isn't mainstream.
Right.
It sounds like you're talking about like some snuff movie you saw. Like,
Yeah.
not something that's like, oh yeah, fucking, New Line Cinema presents. Like,
Well, like another movie we covered this year, Train Spotting, right? I remember my parents going to see Train Spotting and my mom describing the toilet scene to me. And I was like, well, what you're describing sounds like it happens on a Nickelodeon show that I watch and you walk by in the background and scoff and go, this is so silly.
Right. Not in like an art house festival hit.
Right. And I'm like, what do you mean you respect the movie you just saw where a man climbs headfirst into a toilet and goes down into the sewers?
Right.
You know?
Sims, I have a question. In the UK cut of Se7en, was it still sauce with gluttony, or was it like figgy pudding or something instead?
They
Figgy
spell sloth with a U.
Yeah, they yeah, no, they oh shit, I'm trying to think of another Brit joke I could make right now. The dildo was made of aluminium. I don't know.
What was the UK US conversion rate in 1995?
Oh, like so 7 deadly sins was actually 4.5 British sins.
Yes.
One of the deadly sins is oversteeping your tea.
Oh, I mean, because then it tastes like. I remember my friend saying that to me once. He's
It
like,
tastes like
he was like, you can't leave the bag in too long. Because I was like, "Meh." I remember making it, and I was like, he's right. That's what it tastes like. No, the weirdest thing about Se7en too is that it is not like an art house hit at all. It played like a blockbuster.
yes.
And like
It was
it's not like
September-
it played at a film festival or anything like that. Like it was not being released as a prestige film.
It was a bizarre September blockbuster that was being sold as like a nasty little genre movie.
right. It's like it's in the same vein in terms of its release strategy as like Kiss the Girls.
Yes.
Something like that. Like, you know,
Right.
all those Morgan Freeman thrillers that come after it. Where
And then
it's like, you know.
You read the reviews at the time and like it feels like 40% of critics just dismiss it as like this is just too much.
100. That's what I remember. Like, because I remember reading reviews of this movie, and at the time, like in the newspaper and Newsweek, and then it being like kind of like critically dismissed. I could be, my memory could be wrong about that, but I remember it like being kind of like, you know, this is a cheap entertainment, or
Yeah.
you know, this is lurid for its own sake.
It was spread out like there were people who were tapped into it early. Ebert was like there from the beginning. I think
there
pretty
were
much.
people, but I think even those reviews were like, this is an exceptionally made thriller.
Yes.
It was not like this is a film worthy of Oscar consideration. It was more like this is a really good noir movie.
Right.
You know, that's nasty because it's the 90s. And then also, and his name will come up several times, I'm sure, during this episode, because it has to. Kevin Spacey won a ton of critics awards that
Yes.
year for this and The Usual Suspects.
Excuse me.
Right?
I was looking it up. There are multiple, at least 5 awards that gave him split supporting actor across
Right.
Swimming
It's
with
those two.
Sharks,
Yep.
Usual Suspects,
Yep.
7 and Outbreak.
Outbreak.
His 95 was
What a year.
in fucking sane.
Right. It was sort of that like he's arrived, this like character actor
Yes.
who's been hanging around.
Yes.
You know, watching it again, I kind of like Pitt's performance the most in the movie. I don't know if that's. I don't
We
know
can
if it
talk
helps.
about it. I mean,
Good.
I think Freeman is incredible in this movie.
I agree.
Pitt, it's like, is this his first serious performance? I guess 12 Monkeys is the same year.
Yeah, but 12 Monkeys, he films right after this,
Right.
and it comes out.
Maybe right.
He had
Before?
Legends of the Fall. Was that
Yeah,
just before
he's
this?
So bad.
He's
Legends
coming
of the
off
Fall.
the
It's crazy.
Heartthrob run. He's coming
Right.
off of Legends of the Fall, River Runs Through It, Interview with a Vampire.
Yep.
Like this and 12 Monkeys are him being like, I finally have cachet. I need to push back on being a pretty boy.
12 Monkeys came out December. So it
Wild.
comes out a few months
Yeah.
later. Right.
Right. And he gets the 12 Monkeys nomination that feels like it's a little bit for this. I do think Spacey's Usual Suspects win is a little bit for this.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this movie has several people who are just like really kind of cresting. They cast really perfectly. But going back to just the intensity of this film, JJ, our researcher, put together a very good dossier of stuff on this movie. Where
Sure.
there are a lot of weird apocryphal myths about this film. This is the kind of movie that myths extend from.
Yeah.
But like everyone fucking turned this movie down. The list of people who were straight offered this film, huge stars, and we'll get to the development process up to this point, but like this was the biggest budget movie New Line had made up until this point in time. And this was New Line trying to level up and be like, here's a script that's great, but it's a little too grisly for any of the bigger studios to make.
Right.
We're going to treat this as our first A movie, whereas Warner Brothers would treat this as a B movie. And it was their biggest budget ever, which was 35. And they tried to get every fucking star attached. And you read through this list, and it's like everyone who reads the script goes like, this is morally offensive.
Right.
You know, like Denzel, Al Pacino, Harrison Ford, like everyone.
Denzel like sounded scared. He was like, "This is evil." Like,
Correct.
Evil.
Like, it's not even them being like, this would hurt my reputation to be in a movie that's this nasty. Their attitude is like, how dare you? I'm going to fire my reps for even passing this along to me for consideration. Which this movie is still intense, but it is wild to think about at that point, almost 30 years ago. People were like, this would be ruinous to not just my career, but culture at large if it got made.
Now it's kind of like, you want to go on the Doughboys podcast? Your agent reach out to you about that.
How dare you suggest this to me? I'm firing you immediately.
The things that were most interesting to me about it, and I'm sure you have it in the dossier of people who turned it down. One they talk about on the commentary is Arlie Ermey, I guess, read for John Doe, which is insane to think about.
That's
and then the
wild.
other one, they also, I guess, offered it to Ned Beatty, who was similarly was like, this is pure evil, is the most evil thing I've ever read.
Yes.
Kind of fun to imagine him, but right, they had no concept of John Doe, it sounds like, because those are three very different actors, like Stacey
100%,
Ermey, Ned Beatty. Yeah. It's so weird that they'd settled on Kevin Spacey, though, playing like a dead-voiced, psychopath. Like that it's just not something he's good at.
Look, I don't know the order in which we can discuss what the proper way to do it.
Right.
But like while watching this movie and just thinking about like, especially a lot of things that have come to light about Kevin Spacey in the last couple of years, I'm talking post-allegations, right?
Sure.
In Kevin Spacey's attempt to sort of defend himself and clean up his character, he has really played up the trauma of his childhood, which is legitimate.
Sure.
But you like read about how intense his childhood was, and you're like, right, this is kind of the story you hear on a true crime documentary about what leads a man to become a murderer. And instead with him, it led a man to become really good at playing murderers in movies. And then the power of stardom leading to him being a psychopath.
Right.
And now he's out to dinner with Elton John.
Yes.
That's what I saw recently.
Yeah. David?
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard the bad news.
What's up?
Stomp is closing.
Yeah, I think it closed, even in the East Village.
Even worse news. I do have some good news, though.
You know what replaced it is the Empire strips back.
It's yes.
Yes.
The
Anyway.
Star Wars themed burlesque show.
Correct. Yeah.
Anyway, bad news. Stomp is closed. Good news. Stamps is still running.
That's true, because stamps, with so much of our world digitized or automated, why would you stick to old school mailing and shipping when you've got stamps.com that can do the hard part for you?
In fact, they're pretty different business models. Stomp's business model was bang on some trash cans to the amusement of tourists.
True.
Right. And Stamp's business model is save you time that you would waste in line at the post office by allowing you to print U.S. postage at home. Make shipping easy.
Look, it's a post office in your office.
Yes.
Postage rates just increased again. Stamps.com has the best discounts in the industry.
Yeah.
Amazing partnerships with USPS and UPS for unbeatable rates, up to 84% off. Plus, Stamps.com automatically tells you your cheapest and fastest shipping options.
Let's make this clear. It doesn't have to be a post office in your office.
No,
It
but
can be a post office in your bathroom. This
Right.
is the thing. Stamps.com sends you the stuff, and then it's up to you.
that's true. All you need is a computer and a printer. They send you the scale.
Yeah.
You have everything you need to get started.
You could do it on the toilet if you want to.
Okay. If
You
you, need
can.
it, okay. If you need a package pickup, you can schedule it through your stamps.com dashboard. And if you sell products online, they seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart.
It's really easy. It's so easy. You could do it and do whatever you need to do in the bathroom at the same time.
Avoid the hassle and get started with stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code CHECK for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code CHECK. I want to give you guys some background on the film Seven from our dossier. And I do want to point out that Mank, a film that the Doughboys have never discussed,
We'll never discuss.
maybe we'll never discuss, was on deck. The script was ready. His dad, Jack Fincher, wrote the script for Mank.
Yeah.
And like the script was ready after Alien 3, and he thought about pursuing Mank this early in his career.
Well, he also had the attitude post Alien 3 of like, I never want to make a movie again. That was
he's a little
fucking
bit of that.
miserable. And I think you hear about a lot of guys like this. And this is another thing that speaks to like the sort of critical uneasiness around this movie when it came out, is there was still such a like, you're just a fucking music video director.
Right. You're
You guys
all
are
sizzle.
flashy. It's all
Yeah.
style. You don't have like the actual know-how or the integrity or the human depth or whatever it is. But for a lot of those guys, there are a lot of examples of like they make their one big movie and they go like, this is not fucking worth it. I can make commercials and music videos and make $20 million a year on much shorter shoots with much less interference.
Right. The Kinka Ushers of
The
the
Kinka
world.
Usher, the Joe Pitkas.
Yes.
But it did feel like Fincher was kind of half in this zone of like, maybe I just fucking go back to the more lucrative thing. And it makes sense that he's like, maybe I just make my dad's script before I retire from movies forever.
He also met with the Bond producers, he says, when they were transitioning to Pierce Brosnan. Although he says, believe me, they didn't want to hear from me.
Right.
But he did have a meeting with them.
He told his reps not to send him scripts, which is why he was considering Mank so seriously at this point in time, because it's the only thing he's reading.
He also was actually attached to the remake of The Avengers, the British Avengers, which was eventually turned into a movie with Ralph Fiennes and Uma Thurman.
A movie that ultimately was directed by Jeremiah Cheshik, director of producer Ben's beloved National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, who was inexplicably the original director attached to Se7en.
He was the first choice.
That's right.
Because he was like, I want to go more serious. I've been doing too many comedies.
And instead he made The Avengers.
Yes. But they did a full swap years apart.
Yeah, so this is a spec script written by Andrew Kevin Walker. He said he wrote it in sort of the late 80s in New York.
Yeah.
And, sort of nasty New York,
Right.
which he says is sort of informing the...
He grows up in the
vibe.
suburbs. He moves to New York. He's like, this is the most decrepit, degenerate, disgusting place on earth. How can anywhere be this evil?
He worked at Tower Records.
Yes.
And yeah.
Basically, this script was his motivating force to be like, I want to write a script so good I can quit my fucking job at Tower Records.
Mhm.
And it was like a 2.5-year process of writing this script. Just being like, I just need to fucking get out so this could be my last month ever working here.
And then indeed, it gets sold to a company called Penta Film,
Mhm.
and they option it for Jeremiah Cheshik.
Mhm.
Is that how you say his name?
Mhm.
And he demands a rewrite that includes removing the head from the box.
Right.
Is generally just a sanitized version of the
A
movie,
classic
apparently.
Hollywood. You've written this incredible calling card script. Oh my God, what incredible,
How do we
uncompromising
ruin it?
view. Right. Obviously, we're not going to let you make any of this. So he goes through like a year or two developing it with this company, going along with all their rewrite pitches.
Yeah, he's right.
Doing a script that he basically says, if it had ever gotten made, would have ruined his career.
Right.
Would have been a dead end.
It was offered to Phil Junot,
Mhm.
who is best known as the director of many a U2 music video.
Was a Fincher contemporary,
Yes.
but was more heralded as this guy might have the goods to be a feature director than Fincher was.
And he was going to make it maybe with Gary Oldman, but they found it too grim.
Mhm.
And as you say, Fincher post Alien 3, a movie we all like, I think,
Good movie.
is just like, don't even send me scripts. Like, forget it. Fuck it. I hate all of this.
And that's a movie with an unrelentingly bleak worldview that
Right.
Fox kept on pushing up against. So you can just imagine when he's reading a script like this, he's just like, what's it going to look like at the end of this fucking process?
Right. How will they ruin it? But Mike
Right.
DeLuca, who obviously is Mr. New Line at the time, now he runs Warner Brothers, right? He just
Yes.
got put in charge of Warner Brothers, is like, I want you to make this. Fincher reads the script and he's just like, this is so evil. And then he reads the ending and is like, I can't believe this is the ending of this movie. And famously, they
Yes.
had sent him the wrong script.
Right.
They had sent him the unsanitized version and they meant to send him the no head version.
So New Line had sort of rolled back the script to the earlier version before the previous company had
the
butchered it.
Jeremiah
to
Cheshik
shreds.
version.
But they still were like, this can't be the ending. And then, yes, Fincher gets the wrong draft.
Fincher gets the fucked up draft and is like, I really want to do this. And they're like, oh, we sent you the wrong script. Read the other script. And he's like, I don't like that. I want to do the thing you sent me. I
Yeah.
want to do the fucked up version. And
And every conversation you read from then on out is, obviously, Head in a Box is a non-starter. David, don't even fight me on it. It's not happening.
Sure.
And Fincher was just like so adamant. And the argument, I think it's in the dossier that he puts it to the producer. What's the producer's name on this film?
Arnold Kopelson.
Yeah. He said, and this is a point where he's like, no one's expecting this movie is going to be a genuine blockbuster, right?
Right.
They think it's going to be some weird cult curio thing. This is the weird side project a bunch of big stars made in between glossier Hollywood movies. And he said, this is the ultimate outcome we want for this movie is just imagine a couple kids in a schoolyard 20 years from now being like, have you ever seen this fucked up movie that ends with a woman's head in a box?
And they'll all be
and
like,
the cops
right.
Right.
I remember that.
Right.
You know?
And he's like, if we put that in the movie, no one will ever forget that they've seen this movie. Even if the movie doesn't succeed in theaters at the time.
It is amazing that this ending exists in such like a mainstream studio film, because this was the era of like, I remember like the Scarlet Letter. Like they put in a happy ending. They grafted a happy ending onto that. And it's like that. I feel like they were completely averse to doing anything ending on a down note at all throughout the 90s. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I can't think of any other examples.
No, I think you're right. I think
like
it's
peak sort of like the Player era Hollywood. They're going to sanitize everything.
Like you're saying, they're sending this script to people who are big actors who are like, I won't do this movie. And how dare you even send me this?
They
and
receive the script, then they tie it to a brick and throw it back through the window of New Line.
But Brad Pitt claims, I think Brad Pitt can be a bit of a fabulous, God bless him, but claims that he like contractually demanded the head stay in the box.
Yeah.
Like when he signed on.
That and also
that
Mills shooting.
And that he, his character kills John Doe.
Which just watching it last night, the ending is of course heavy.
Yeah.
And I was like, would it have bothered me if Morgan Freeman shot Spacey? I don't know if it would have bothered me. I guess it does just take away from the bleakness of it all.
Well, Mitch, you were putting forth the question of, is Pitt the best performance in this movie? And I don't know if I agree with that, but he kills the final scene so hard.
I love it.
And
he plays such a great dumb guy in this movie. That's really
that's
what I
why
love.
he's
fucking
good.
Dumb.
Yeah.
Which is the way the
100%.
shit is written too. It's so fucking
and you just
dumb.
read about like, well, like, it's hard to gauge what was the actual first round pick if Fincher had his choice from all the people they offered it to.
Right.
But it's like, it sounds like he really wanted a version that was like Gene Hackman and Denzel, right? Where like Mills is younger than Somerset, but he's not young.
Yeah.
Right.
And Pitt was so outside of like the type they were thinking of. He just had so much heat and studios wanted him to do anything at that point, and he latched onto it. And Fincher was like, he's wrong for this. And New Line was like, please take the meeting. If you cast this guy, you'll be able to get away with more, right? And he was just like, I met with him and I thought he was completely wrong for the part, but there was something about like, you kind of wanted to root for this guy.
Right.
And Fincher has this quote, he said it when he was going through the whole insane process casting Dragon Tattoo, which we'll obviously get to in a later episode. But when he was doing such rigorous testing of like every single actress in Hollywood, and he said like, the reason I was so stubborn about this and relentless about it was that like, I think the thing you want to find when you're casting your leads and casting your movie stars is like the essential quality they have in their being that no matter what is going to come through on camera. Because like shoots are long, they're intense. I'm going to do 100 takes with people. It's not about how good they are on the first take. It's about what am I not going to be able to beat out of their system even when they're exhausted and run down. And the thing that works, and you kind of can't imagine this wasn't by design from the first place, is that like Pitt has the energy of a guy who is trying so hard to prove that he is a serious actor.
It's right where he is in his career. He's like, he's trying to be serious in the movie, and and the character is like, I'm a real cop. Like and like that's why Morgan Freeman is so good.
Could not be more relaxed. Couldn't have less to prove.
Yeah, like just like he doesn't even have an attitude.
No,
he's just literally seen it all.
Right, and Morgan Freeman comes in and he's like, cut like 40% of my dialogue. Like he goes through the script with Fincher.
All right. Okay. You're
and Pitt's like, give me more.
Okay. So, all right, some of the people linked to the Pacino is the big one for Somerset.
Hates playing cops though.
That very different movie.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine mid-90s Pacino doing this. He'd be so like loud and over the. I mean, I love him.
It'd be a nightmare.
Every other version that you said, I mean, just Denzel taking over Pitt's role, the movie doesn't work in the same way. There's just it does feel perfect.
Well, there's a scene they the lust interrogation with the actor's name is
He's so great.
But it's him, like he's giving his hyperventilating description of what happened to him and what John Doe did to him and what he got strapped into.
The alien resurrection guy.
Yes, yeah,
and he's damn good.
But he's opposite Morgan Freeman, and they like Fincher and Pitt, who are together in the commentary, like zero in. I was and Freeman just sitting there, like he's just looking at him, like he's not doing anything in that scene, and that like calmness, that calming presence, it just like. It's like the blue doesn't show up on blue thing, right? Like he's like the little bit of calm that's amidst all the chaos in this throughout this city and throughout this investigation.
Some Sonic the Hedgehog saying the blue doesn't show up on blue.
That's why his belly's a different color.
Oh, okay, all right, that's it.
And his shoes. All right, Hackman supposedly passed on the movie. Duvall and Harrison Ford. I don't know.
I imagine they offer it to every single person.
They're still laughing about Sonic.
We made ourselves laugh over here. We're sorry.
It's quite all right. Morgan Freeman loves the script. This is right after Shawshank, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, so he's... I guess it's probably... Well...
Yeah.
Has it come out? It's 93, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Or is it 94?
No, there's the
94.
I thought Shawshank was 94.
It's 94.
Is it 93?
Yeah,
but
it's
they're
94.
shooting this movie in 94.
Yeah, exactly. So like Shawshank is just
Shawshank's come out.
He's definitely got, driving mistake. I'm just trying to pick because like this is the beginning of Morgan Freeman movie star in my opinion. Even though like
I would agree,
those two things give him a lot of prestige, and he's in other smaller roles. But like now it's after this, it's like Kiss the Girls, Long Came a Spider, Million. Like Morgan Freeman is your star.
I think the tail on Daisy is very long, right?
All right. Jeez.
She's got a fat ass, Miss Daisy. That's all I'm saying.
No, Tandy drove you wild.
God, almost like a truck. No, I think that movie was so huge and beloved.
Sure.
And I think almost like immediately became like a TV mainstay. Right. So he's like, and then Shawshank, which famously underperformed when it came out, but is like such a beloved performance. He said the main reason he accepted this movie, Freeman, when every other actor's turning it down morally, and New Line said, "Hey, what about Morgan Freeman?" And Fincher went like, "Don't even offer it to Morgan Freeman. He's going to be so offended."
Right.
And they were like, "Freeman's read it and he's interested."
Yes.
And he meets with him and he's like, "Why do you want to do this when all these other guys have said no, who have done gnarlier movies than you?" And Freeman was basically like, not to sound like ego driven, but like I was not getting offered many films where I was the guy carrying the story at that point. And he was like, it was basically Daisy and Shawshank, but in both of those cases, he's a little more secondary.
Right.
And even though Pitt's first build in this, it really is Freeman who's moving it along. And he was like, the fact that Shawshank, I was narrating and I got to carry the story. I read the script and I was like, the script's good. My guy's on every page. And he's sort of the steady hand. How am I going to say no to that?
But as you say,
I'm a little bit of a freak myself, too.
well, there might be a little of that. I don't know.
I like putting things in boxes.
He did ask for stuff to get cut, which I feel like is a rare demand for an actor. Yeah. Like, hey, I need less lines.
But he's
like, I can just do this with a look.
I can do that with a look. God, I mean, you're talking about Nick, just like his energy and some of the shots of him listening. There is the reaction shot he gives when Gwyneth Paltrow tells him
my favorite scene in the movie.
She's pregnant.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That is astonishing.
He's so upset about it, but he's doing his best to just be like, poker faced about it. And like the little bit that comes out is so good. Yes. I love that's my favorite scene in the movie.
It's a great scene. It is like a it's such a, in a lot of ways, it's such like a, because you talked about the script being written in the late 80s, like that version of New York. It's such like a timestamp of that era when it's like urban decay and like this is like the cities are dangerous and stay out of there. And like her character is so, yeah, she's like friendless and isolated. But just like the thing that struck me that I didn't track when I was younger and I watched this, I don't think I've seen this movie and I'd seen it more than once, but I don't think I'd seen it in 20 years. Watching it now is just like the profound loneliness of everyone. Like everyone is isolated. Like, even this married couple, like they're together, but they're shown in separate spaces a lot. The person she can confide in is like his partner.
His
It's like, that's insane.
New partner.
Who,
his new partner, yeah.
Doesn't have an emotional relationship with. Like,
no, they barely know each other.
Trying to connect the two of them, and in the process, she realizes that she gets along with him. But I think that's such a key thing where, like, the Paltrow's so good in this, but that character plays so well despite not having a ton of screen time. And I think the secret key is, like, that's the character that's the analog for Andrew Kevin Walker, right?
Sure.
That's the character he relates to most in this movie.
Right. Like, this isn't like Paul Schrader, where Paul Schrader is like writing Taxi Driver and is like, I kind of feel this way sometimes. Right.
Andrew Kevin Walker is like, I'm sort of a babe in the woods who moved to a big city because I want to have a career.
And it's so scary.
Right. And like the career ambition is like Brad Pitt's character. Like, that's the thing that drove him, that he's following. And then he's just terrified by this whole city around him. He's writing the script over years. So like, yeah, Nick, as you said, by the time this movie comes out, it's coming out in a like New York that's being Giuliani'd. But it's a remnant of a New York that to him was just like incomprehensibly dark.
Wow, we brought up Kevin Spacey and Giuliani. Is there anyone else we want to?
Don't worry, I got a list. I'm running through them.
All right, so yes,
were Gwyneth Paltrow and Brad Pitt dating at this point still? Yes.
Yes. This is when they start dating, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I think
no, they
kind of feel it.
Yes, they met on the set of
work well together.
Yes. They dated for 3 years. They got engaged in 1996 and split in 97. And I can't remember when he gets with Aniston, but it's not that long after that, I feel like.
No.
And does she go to Affleck after that, maybe? Because she had the Affleck relationship.
Many years, yeah.
So yes, Denzel famously turned down this movie and regrets it. The other movie he regrets turning down?
Michael Clayton,
which is amazing to think about him in that.
Yes.
I mean, I think that is like maybe the best Clooney performance of all time.
I
but
agree.
it is cool to think about Denzel as Michael Clayton.
The other thing when I was reading about this movie is that is such like a 90s thing that wasn't in my head today, but is like, oh yeah, of course they would have thought about that, was that they were like, older black detective, young white detective. This is people are just going to think it's Lethal Weapon, which is like, this is so tonally completely different from Lethal Weapon, but you can see them over calculating the casting to that point and finally being like, I guess we'll do it anyway.
Especially because Pitt's kind of manic in this movie, and Morgan is too old for this shit.
Yeah,
I mean, he's retiring.
He's about to retire.
It's so weird that he became a movie star playing guys who are about to retire and then was like, I can do this for 20 more years. Like, like that's what he did after this. Like, it's true. You agree with me.
No, I do. No, it's the thing of, yes, I think you and I find it particularly fascinating when someone who is like a very established actor suddenly locks into their movie persona.
Right.
Their movie star persona,
and they get vehicles all about, out of nowhere. Yeah.
And like late into a career, right? Where it's just like, oh, that's the thing where if you plant him in that, suddenly there's a handle on it and everyone understands it's this kind of movie.
Right.
Because yes, he was just sort of like, I think, Mr. Serious Actor, Mr. Prestige. And then there's this like odd, what would be late career for anyone else. That's really like his ascension to A-list status is just like this gentle but weary cop.
I do like this line from Brad Pitt that I just wanted to escape the cheese, and I came to find out that David Fincher had a lactose intolerance as well. I like that. It's like Pitt trying to, get beyond Legends of the Fall.
And Fincher talks a lot about like Pitt fucking saved him on this movie. Pitt just had so much power to swing around in that moment. That anytime, and they were so aligned in their view of what they wanted to get out of this movie, that he would be losing an argument and Pitt would just place the one call and it would be settled immediately. A thing Fincher had been fighting over for 5 months. And his quote was like, the power of being blonde is astonishing.
Right. Yeah. That's he gives funny quote. Did you know the reason they wanted Ned Beatty?
Because he looked like the composite drawing of the Zodiac killer.
That's right. That is the original. So that's how early he's thinking about Zodiac. And Ned Beatty said, "This is the most evil thing I've ever read."
Yep.
He wanted Michael Stipe briefly.
Interesting.
Height of REM's success.
I mean, Spacey in this movie is giving a very Stipe-like performance,
Sure,
I
he's
would argue.
bald.
No, but his whole like weird Spacey energy, no pun intended, you know?
And then, yes, they settle on Spacey and whatever. Like, then they get the runaround from New Line for a while. What?
Spacey does his audition.
Yeah.
Pitt and Fincher watch it. They go, holy shit, this guy seems totally innocent, will never commit any crimes. This performance is amazing. He can hold his head high walking out of the courtroom. He will always be vindicated.
Oh, boy. Put this guy in front of a fireplace, maybe get a sweater on him.
We all know there are no crimes in art.
Uh-huh.
In fact, now that you mention it, we never did see My Death, did we? He said all of this. His audition tape was just the original reading of Let Me Be Frank. And they said, what is this material? It's a spec I'm working on. I don't think it's quite ready yet.
I'm going to keep it in the pocket for a rainy day, if you will.
But Spacey was like starting to rise, had shot already Swimming with Sharks, Usual Suspects, Outbreak. None of them had come out.
Right.
But he had 3 big movies in the can. One indie film where he was like the co-lead, and then 2 huge films where he was, a mid-sized film where he was ensemble, a huge studio film where he was getting the end. And so his quote had gone up, but he wasn't demonstrably a box office draw yet.
Yeah.
And so New Line didn't want to pay for him.
Yeah.
They cast someone else who no one has been able to quite
No one knows who. They had someone
figure
else
out
on
who
deck.
it was.
Right.
But they start filming with someone else trying to get Spacey.
Yeah, he did 12 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Pitt finds out. He said, what happened? Have we closed the deal on Spacey yet? Fincher says, no, they won't agree.
Oh, no, Spacey did 12 days. Spacey's whole shoot was 12 days.
Right. I think that guy only filmed a day or 2.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it was mostly, maybe it was the foot chase stuff. It wasn't any of the big dialogue stuff.
Right.
Was it Stoltz? Did they do it to Stoltz again?
Oh, my God.
That would suck.
Stoltz.
But yeah, no, Pitt was the one who got on the phone with New Line and said, hire Spacey. Right. And then the deal was closed. He was on set 2 days later, and the rest of his career was perfect.
Is the other actor in they did reshoots, right? The other actor's
I think
not.
so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the I guess the helicopter shots at the end they shot all that with doubles because they had to shoot that months later.
Right. They wouldn't give Fincher the budget to do it originally.
I didn't realize that cop there in the helicopter was what's his name? The
John C. McGinley.
Yeah, McGinley.
Yeah.
John C. McGinley is in this. Arlie Ermey apparently hated David Fincher and said that he treats actors like puppets.
What was his line? Like, if you hate acting, I recommend working with David Fincher.
If you're not worth a shit at acting and you're not creative, then I recommend you go work with David Fincher because he won't let you act even if you're a fucking good actor. Now, Arlie Ermey, I will say, is someone who seems a little intense.
Salty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just generally.
A little salty, yeah.
And it's interesting because like he seems like someone who would never like be able to take direction. He's a goddamn drill sergeant.
Yeah.
But also he worked with Stanley Kubrick, who I consider even more famously exacting.
Well, that's what's wild about him being that critical of Fincher. But then also it's like, he famously is the guy in Kubrick's oeuvre where he was like, do whatever the fuck you want.
Right. You're actually allowed to go off. Right.
Yeah,
You
this
actually
is just
don't have
you.
to do
I'm
the
giving
script.
you the space. Right.
He's good in this movie.
He is good in this. I love seeing him as a police chief. And I was just going to say it's interesting because I watched the actor's commentary and the one that's the one that Fincher's on, or one of the ones that Fincher's on. And he said, like, Morgan Freeman specifically talks about how when Fincher talked to him about the role, he didn't really give him any notes on characterization, and he was just like talking about how he wanted to shoot it, and he was just talking about lighting and blocking. And he felt like he was like, oh, okay. He's just kind of like, he knows that I'm going to take care of that element. So I wonder if he treated I wonder if the puppeting was more of how he treated individual cast members, but not everyone. I don't know.
That may well be true. Yeah. I mean,
Here's pure conjecture on my part.
great. Love it. Love pure conjecture.
Yeah. Because I was reading more quotes from Ermey talking about this, right? And he was just like, I came ready to do all this stuff, and he wouldn't let me do any of it, and he didn't trust me as an actor and whatever. You watch the opening credits of this movie, and it starts going like Arlie Ermey, John C. McGinley, Richard Roundtree, right? And I'm thinking like, man, I forgot this movie has a murderer's row, just a stacked deck of some of the greatest cinematic yellers in history,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just some fucking screamy sons of bitches. And then you watch the movie and the guys are all pretty muted.
Right.
It's like he's taking these guys who you know can be really volatile.
Yeah.
And he's keeping them all like a little bit domesticated.
Sure.
And I imagine R. Lee Ermey came in here and was like, I want to fucking act. Especially when he originally auditioned for John Doe, right? That he's like, I want to show my range. Everyone knows me as the drill sergeant. I want to fucking give a dramatic showcase performance. And Fincher wisely was like, you got to be bottled. Because the most disarming thing is to watch R. Lee Ermey, the drill sergeant, sit quietly behind a desk and sort of go like, okay, now don't get too invested in this case. You know?
Right.
Like not really blow up. But maybe that was incredibly frustrating for him.
I do like when he answers the phone. He's like, this isn't my desk, and then hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
I think that's funny.
But like that exact exchange, you could imagine R. Lee Ermey playing in like the full J. Jonah Jameson to the nines, screaming, slamming the phone down.
He would have been a good J. Jonah Jameson. He's got the hair.
People, I think that
makes sense.
Cameron maybe wanted
makes
to
sense.
cast him as JJJ.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that's part of it. And it's that thing of like, going back to Fincher's very strategic about what he casts actors for, you know? So someone like Pitt, it's like the fact that he wants to be taken seriously is the thing that's going to really come across on screen versus casting someone like R. Lee Ermey or Richard Roundtree and having them sit behind a desk and never blow up is him sort of playing with the tension of what you expect these types of guys to do.
Same with, Richard Roundtree, right. Just, giving these dour press conferences. I love that this is set in a non-real city where it's just raining all the time. And everything sucks. It's like Blade Runner. Like it's like I know Blade Runner is technically set in a city, right? Is it LA?
It's LA.
Yeah.
Right?
But like it is LA. But like
their badges just say Metropolitan.
Yeah, that it's just like, they just live in like USA. I've been watching the Saw movies, which obviously are hilariously indebted to Se7en.
Sims, that was my big thought about this is how much I forgot how much Saw stole.
Saw is just
I shouldn't say stole.
Se7en that's been run through the fucking, shit grinder or whatever. Not that they're kind of fun, but that's another one where you're like, where is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this town where it's just like, there's like 1,400 warehouses. This guy's just got torture devices. Everyone who lives here is either a victim or a cop. Like he's the most and it's perfect. You're just like, I don't like whatever. That society is degraded to this point that like Saw can happen.
I had a question about not only the city but the timeline, because you see that the Sloth victim was born in 1931. Did you notice this?
Okay.
They look at his license and I'm like, was that guy supposed to be 60 years old? And then it didn't really track to me. So I kind of like it kind of being an ambiguous time. I mean, this is also before iPhones, I guess.
Well, yeah, okay. So that's a big thing. Whenever it was set, it's like it feels like it's supposed to be a contemporary 90s movie, but regardless, like this is like towards the end of when a movie that's set in a contemporary time would be fully pre-internet. And that's part of what I loved about rewatching this and why I like this movie more is like there's no cell phone.
There's no
cell phone. There's no there's a little bit of some sort of data search, but it's through like an FBI third party. They're still going to the physical fucking library to pull books off of shelves. All that shoe leather plays so much better.
Yes.
The data search is Mark Boone Jr. coming back with a manila envelope.
Right.
Which is
Sorry,
great.
it's a little greasy.
Mark Boone Jr., an actor that David once referred to as looking like he sleeps in pizza.
He sleeps under a pizza.
He steals a slice of pizza in this movie.
He does.
I mean,
I guess
man
there's
loves
also the
pizza.
fingerprint analysis, but that's like a very crude,
Yeah, that's old.
whatever.
That's 100 years old at
Yeah,
this
exactly.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They also all dress like 40s noir detectives.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, Somerset's little hat.
Right.
And Pitt's like suit, they're very, it's all very noir-y. R. Lee Ermey's got the vest.
Which is
The
like
three-piece
an area
suit, yeah.
where Fincher's control of style and stylization is really important for this movie because I think a lot of directors would have tried to set it in a more realistic city,
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
whether or not they named it. And you kind of need that heightening of like, no, this takes place in like just kind of hell.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't even think that it was a thing that took place in like the 80s or the 50s rather. I'm just saying it just feels like an alt universe, which I
Yes,
I
agreed.
love. Yeah.
Fincher is actually an unreliable narrator in a way because he will often downplay, I think, his own artistry.
Mhm.
He says the rain thing was, we had 55 days with Pitt. He was going to do 12 Monkeys right after this movie. So we had to match everything. And it was raining when we started doing the movie. And so we were just like, it's always going to be raining. But then he says like, but also I kind of wanted to make it not feel like LA because it's always sunny. You know, so like, I think it was an artistic choice by him. But he likes to be like, it's practical, you know.
And it feels intentional that when it's not raining is the end of the movie. Is John Doe turning the
out in the
tables. It's
desert.
just like,
Right.
that's
Then
finally
he
when
also
we see
says,
sunlight,
he's like,
you know?
if I could have put rain units in that, I would have. He was like, that was logistical. I had no...
Right, hard to do that. Right.
Sometimes he does make
I think
things
he
sound
often is like self-deprecating in a way. Right, yeah.
That's the other wild thing. Right, Pitt had pre-committed to 12 Monkeys. And Fincher was sort of prepping this movie on like a 5-month schedule out from production.
Right.
And then when Fincher becomes interested, they're like, you can... Or when Pitt becomes interested, rather, they were like, you can get Pitt if you're ready to film in 8 weeks. And he did it. They just went like rocket speed on this movie.
Right. And then he has this moment, apparently, the AD, not the AD you know, Mitch, Michael Kahn, a different AD.
Who was Bob Wagner, by the way? I confirmed it. That was Bob Wagner.
Bob Wagner, who worked on Social Network, I think, and many other Fincher films. But Michael Kahn says, like, once they started production, he like went up to Fincher and said, look, we're here. We're doing it. We're shooting a movie. There's Morgan Freeman. There's Brad Pitt. Isn't this amazing? And Fincher's like, no, it's awful. And he's like, why is it awful? And he said, because now I have to get what's in my head out to all of you cretins. Which is funny. Do you don't think that's funny?
No, I think that's very funny. I just read it already.
Right. You already read it. That's why you shouldn't read the dossier, because I can't
Maybe
surprise
you shouldn't read the dossier. I just...
Right. I mean, you can do the dossier.
You think about psychologically where Fincher is at this point, where I think he knows, like, if I fuck this up, I'm done.
Right. Definitely.
That was my question to you guys. If this movie doesn't work, is it over for this guy? I mean, like also in the world where, you know, like if you have 2 flops, right, at this point, are you just done?
But I think particularly for a guy who's like difficult, it's seen as difficult and strong-headed and exacting or whatever. If like twice the movie doesn't turn out well, even if it's a little bit successful, and the reputation is like, he was too stubborn, he's too dark, you know?
There's a middle version though. Because like there's obviously, if the movie flops, his career is toast.
Yeah.
This movie did about as well as it possibly could. It did so incredibly well.
Yes.
There's a version of this movie that makes like $60-70 million domestic.
Yeah.
And is seen as like, yeah, that was a mild hit and it was a dark movie.
Yeah.
And he probably gets to make like dark mid-budget
He
movies.
stays at this size.
Yeah. Like it's like, yeah, okay, all right, Finchy.
Right.
But now that's your lane.
Yes.
And it's not, I mean, that is his lane in a way. It's not like it's, but like I feel like he gets much more power because of how well this movie
What's
did.
the blank
over,
check
like,
thing we
projects
talked
he
about
does.
where it's like when a guy basically becomes a genre, right?
Right.
And Hollywood is so perplexed by the success of their movie that on paper shouldn't have been a hit.
Yeah.
And the success has to be chalked up so largely to the sensibility of the filmmaker that they were like, do your thing.
Yeah.
We now think your thing is popular.
Yeah. We don't even know what it is.
Right. We can't
Exactly.
define it.
In your parlance, is this his guarantor? This
This
movie?
is.
This is
Absolutely.
Guarantor.
Yeah.
And then the only weird thing is that Fight Club is him cashing the check.
Yeah.
He just makes the game in between
Right.
because he kind of wants to, I guess. But like
He
he's
kinda
not
goes and
really
does it
cashing the check then.
No.
Like he probably could have made the game. I mean, and he was working on setting up the game the same time he was working
I
on
was going to
Seven.
say, but
right?
the universe you're saying where this movie does okay,
Yeah.
he could have made the game.
He probably could have made the game.
That's like the
Yeah.
exact lateral move he could have done.
And he still just does it, I think, to do it. And
Yeah.
I love that movie. But the Fight Club is him more being like, okay, guys, I know this seems impossible, but I made Seven.
Yeah.
So like I can make this too.
Yes.
Right? Because Fight Club is impossible. Like that script does not read like a movie that's going to work.
No. We should start digging into the plot.
Of Seven. Okay, so there's a guy doing 7 murder.
Yeah, 7 murders.
7 murders.
Guys, thank you for being here.
Yeah, Doughboys is the podcast. You know, we
Right.
talk about chain restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
check
think
that
we
out.
covered all of it, right?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's not like it's a plotty movie in a way, but every time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of moves pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like the murders do not dribble out here. Like, you know, there's like 3 of them are basically done in the first 20 minutes.
I had forgotten because the opening credits of this movie are so infamous.
That's like something that was burned
Yes.
into my brain as a
They're so good.
kid.
And I remembered it being the cold open. Like I remember it being New Line logo and then
Yes.
straight into this
Nine
sort
Inch
of
Nails video.
tone
Yes.
style
Right,
setting.
right.
Yes. It's sort of his like mission statement on the movie. I mean, he said that it's like, I wanted to make the opening credits really extreme to prep the audience for how far the movie could possibly go.
Right.
The thing I forgot is that you have the cold open of Freeman before the credits.
Yeah.
Which is just sort of the table setting of this guy's sort of like,
He's weary. He lives in the worst city in the world, and he sees the worst people.
And this was supposed to be longer too, right? It was like he went to like he was going to go to his retirement home, and then he was going to take a train into the city. Like there was like a longer thing, and they simplified it to just like he's at a random crime scene.
If I was 1 week from retirement,
Mhm.
I would not take up the 7 murders case.
they keep on telling him not to.
I
Arlie
know.
Army tells him not to.
I know. I wouldn't.
Well,
I
at
wouldn't.
first though,
I
he
would-
thinks it's just one. They
Yeah,
start
he
with
thinks it's
one.
one.
No, it's going to be 7.
He
right
thinks he's in
away.
a movie called One.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
This is the infamous one murderer. He killed one person.
Yes.
That sick fuck. Let me at him. I'm like, yes. So
The
yes.
opening of the movie is just a random murder, right? That we open
yes,
on.
it's not one of the 7.
And it's just selling this idea of like, I just think his characterization is so precise in this of like, he's so run down and he's so weary, but 9 out of 10 versions of this guy would also be like cynical, kind of grizzled in a different way. Like you can't shock me with
Sure.
anything. This guy still has his humanity, right? He can
Yeah.
still be shocked by things. There's the key moment when he sees the kid's drawing on the fridge and he says, did the kid witness the murder?
Right.
And they go, what the fuck? That's none of your business. That doesn't matter. Your job is to solve the crime. Don't worry about the kid. But there's something in this guy who has sacrificed his entire life to being a detective, right?
Mhm.
Who like basically sabotaged the one meaningful romantic relationship he ever had in his life, has truly been married to his career.
Right.
There's something in this guy that's still going like, oh, fuck, is this kid going to get fucked up? Is that the crime I need to think about now?
Right.
Is the
right.
long tail of this kid's psychology over the next 50 years, whether or not he was present. And everyone's saying like, just do your job. And even when he's this close to the exit, there's something kind of holistic in his worldview. I mean, it's the final quote, Wigs, of like, he doesn't have any faith in the world, but he still wants to fight for it. He still wants to try to be doing what he can to make the world a little less evil.
Yeah, he's kind of looking forward in the sense of like, did what I do have any impact on anything? You know?
Right, because he has nothing to retire to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He steps down. It's not like, well, now I get to enjoy growing old around my grandkids.
Right.
He's like, now I'm going to retire and I'm just going to stare at a wall for the rest of my life and wonder whether I made any difference. And I go to sleep with a fucking metronome,
Jesus.
right? Because basically, like, I just imagine I need something to calm my brain down.
He loved that metronome. I think he had to go to a metronome clinic.
Do you think he's addicted to the gnome?
Mitch, 1 million comedy points. I'm sorry for not laughing. I was just really trying to take that joke in deep into my bones.
Oh, boy. I do like the idea of someone being like, can I set you up with somebody? He's like, nah, I got Nomi here. She just ticks away. That's all I need.
My only note, I found it's kind of a missed opportunity that Metronome doesn't talk.
Yeah, right. Hey, Somerset, how you doing? Good day today? How's that Mills guy? Is he going to work out? Think he's got any wrath in him? Right? Wrathid. That's the one.
Yeah.
Think
And
he's
then also
wrathy?
at the end, he doesn't even get to retire with the metronome. Destroys it too. It's
I
just
know.
the sad
That's
thing about-
brutal, actually. That's one of the most brutal deaths in the film.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Why did you hurt me?
I have a question for you guys about the opening before we go just any further because I wanted to ask you this.
Yes.
Is when I purchased this movie on iTunes and I pushed play, it just goes right into the movie and then the opening credits. That's not normal, right? Like I didn't see any studio logos or anything.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Huh.
Is it just me? Am I
I
the
watched
only
it
one?
on Blu-ray and it had that beautiful New Line clapboard.
Yeah,
that-
the old 90s new line. Not the 80s one that I love as well, but that looks like you're about to watch
Am I
pornography.
fucking this up? I swear to God, I think that was the
I don't
case.
know.
I'm going to look at my
I
phone
watched
right
the
now.
Is
blue
the
as well.
Genius Bar?
Yeah.
You're gonna fucking debug your iPad.
You know what? I do think Blank Check is the genius bar.
Wow, high
Hey!
praise. It's very
Couple of
nice.
geniuses.
A thing I was just thinking about watching this,
Seven.
right? The framing of this being like New Line trying to level up and be like, we're going to be a more legitimate, serious studio where they had been seen as sort of a tiny studio or a giant independent company.
Right.
Have they already been acquired by Warner Brothers at the time of this movie?
Let's find out when the exact timeline is here. Obviously, New Line Cinema's acquisition is in 1994.
Okay, so right
yes,
before this.
they just happened. Yeah,
But they started out as like a distributor for like cult movies and college campuses and stuff like that. And they were always called the house that Freddie built because
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street was like their big breakthrough. And they would take a lot of stuff that the studios thought
too gross, too
was
trashy.
beneath them.
Yes.
Ninja Turtles. You can't make a movie about Ninja Turtles. And then that was the most successful independent film ever made at that
Right.
point in time. All this sort of stuff. And this is them trying to level up, right? Which they do with wild success.
Yes,
This movie is like huge for them.
absolutely.
And then like the run after this, right? You have like Rush Hour, Austin Powers, Boogie Nights, American History X.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
This combination of like huge, 94 is their carry year where they have The Mask and Dumb and Dumber.
Mm-hmm.
But they're making like some of the biggest comedies of the 90s.
Rush
huge
Hour and
kind of-
Powers are
And starting franchises.
Yeah.
Oscar-y movies, right? So their 90s level up is like insane.
Then they make Lord of the Rings.
Then they make Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Then they do this gambit where everyone's like, if you fuck this up, your studio is going under.
They also did Elf.
Huge.
I don't know what else. That's about it. Because it's fucking Golden Compass brings it all
That's the
to
thing.
a crashing halt.
So like
right.
the Lord of the Rings thing pays off better than anyone could have imagined. They're like one of the most successful film series ever. They win Best Picture for the third one. And then people are like, you know what? We were all wrong. New Line really proved themselves.
Right.
And they're like, great, we're going to do it again. Golden Compass. Golden Compass comes out and they're like, we're shutting you down. You're folded into Warner Brothers.
Right. We just
It's
floored
done.
it into a
Legacy
brick wall.
over.
Yeah, it's a weird company. I don't know. It still exists, of course, in its way.
I think even Freddie himself would be. I think the 7 murders are messed up, wouldn't you?
Too twisted for me, bitch.
You think Freddie would be scandalized if they sent him the script for 7, maybe?
I would never attach myself to something like this.
Disgusting.
Now this is a nightmare, bitch.
But I'll attach you to it, and then he stabs the claws through the script to the guy.
Speaking of New Line film history, I looked up the man who played Gluttony.
Yes,
I think his
Bob
name's-
Mack.
Oh yeah, I love this.
Yes. Did you guys found this too?
No, I just when I looked him up, I saw that he was a real estate guy. That's all I saw about it. But I don't even know.
Se7en odd. He wrote the songs for this Mr. T TV special that I was obsessed with when I was
Oh my
younger called
God.
Be Somebody or Be Somebody's Fool.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we used to
hell
rent that
yeah.
on VHS and watch
Yes,
it all
an
the time.
incredible
Yeah.
special. So
Yeah.
he wrote the titular song for that. He has like an
That's
odd kind of
wild.
journeyman career. This was his first feature film credit.
Oh my God.
He has
I
so
just found the thing I
David
think you're
found
about
it.
to bring up.
I'm just now selling
Speaking
this
of
to
the
Mitch
history
because
of
Mitch,
New
you're
Line
the one who
Cinema.
doesn't know. Speaking of the history of New Line Cinema, he has one other theatrical film credit after this, Mitch.
What?
He is the on-set body double for Fat Bastard in The Spy Who
Oh
Shagged
my
Me.
God.
Yes. He was the stand-in.
So basically, whenever Fat Bastard's in a scene with one of the other Mike Myers characters,
Right.
Oh my God. He played played film's biggest fat bastards.
the biggest,
he-
the
right.
fattest bastard of
The
them
phone
all.
would ring. He'd pick it up and he'd be like, "Do you want another Mr. T song?" And they're like, "No, we have a role for you."
I'm sorry, David. In your impression,
Yes.
the year is
Nice man.
1997,
Yeah, and he's
1998. He called
Hello?
ring, and before he even says hello, he just says, "What is it? You guys want another Mr. T song?" It's been over a decade since he wrote a Mr. T song, and he's just hoping that's what
Mr.
they're
T's
asking
still
for again.
around. Yeah, maybe they're gonna do a follow-up.
They just want him to play a fat bastard.
And I'm gonna slide right into that spot now. is the guy big? I thought because there's a lot of prosthetics, right?
He,
I think
so
he's
he-
definitely wearing a lot of makeup.
He
and
was
stuff.
380 at the time of filming.
Pretty big.
There's an
Pretty
Entertainment
guy.
Weekly article that's really good about the breakout stars of Se7en, and it's talking to the 7 actors who play the corpses,
Okay, that's pretty funny.
That's
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
That's good.
and they all give little like kind of capsule quotes and funny things.
Well, it's
But
not 7 because there's not 7 corpses in this movie. There's
You're right.
5.
You're right. They
Right?
talk to the 5.
Yes.
They talk
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
5, and they
right,
say we
right.
won't talk about the other 2 because those are spoilers. But he said he was 380 on set and they added 300 pounds visually
Oh, wow.
in prosthetics to try to make him closer to 700.
Sure.
They covered him in real cockroaches.
That's
Cool.
that I read.
Right. They put stuffing in his ears and mouth so the cockroaches wouldn't crawl into his orifices. They did crawl into his underwear.
Oh, good. Great.
And who knows what happened from there.
And then they put a Doughboys poster on the wall, and then it was good to go.
Fincher said he felt so bad for the guy for how bad he made him look and how much he punished him on screen.
Right.
That
he
it was
like,
as a mitzvah.
uh-huh.
He said, let's give the guy a really big hug in the autopsy scene.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
That's great.
So that was like an apology of like, this is going to help this guy's reputation.
It's when I lost my connection to the character. But still, everything else for me, I was like, okay.
You're watching, you're like, this is the hero of the picture. It's weird he's not talking much.
He'll surely come back to life.
Okay, so all right. Plot of it. Gluttony is the first
Yes.
death, right? We're discussing this in order, I guess.
Right.
Somerset and Mills get together. It's like, hey, someone had to eat too much. Let's go check it out. And that's murder number 1. And gluttony is written on the wall.
Freeman almost immediately is like, can you explain to me why the fuck you wanted to be transferred here?
Right. Like, why would you want to work here? Right.
Yeah. But it's the Pitt thing. He's got the energy of a guy who's just like, let me be a movie star. This is my big shot.
It's pretty early that they have that sequence where they're talking about if they've ever fired their guns, right? In the car.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty
Oh,
early.
yeah.
That's a really good scene.
That's rad.
Where Pitt telling the story the whole time you're like, you're putting too much mustard on this, Mills.
Yes.
Like, because Somerset saying like, I've never fired my gun and I've only drawn it thrice.
Yeah.
And like, you never had to shoot it. You're like, damn, that's crazy. That's so cool. And you're thinking about that. And then Mills is like, yeah, I had to fire. This guy unloaded on us, shot someone in the arm, and he's so nervy and manic. And you're just like, not really buying it from him. Not, you believe the story, but
It also ties in the bleakness of just like when he's telling the story of the guy he worked with who got shot and he can't remember his name. He's like, what the fuck is that guy's name? It's just like,
right.
yeah, dude got shot in the arm and bled out, and he's just trying to remember it like a detail in a random anecdote.
Did Pitt kill the perpetrator? Did he kill the suspect or whatever
I
in
got
that
the sense
situation?
that he didn't, because I think if
Yeah,
he
he
did, he
just
would have said he
fired.
did. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He just opened fire.
By the way, I did do some fact checking myself. My iTunes version does open with the New Line logo.
Well,
Okay.
and I believe
All right.
that the Bob Mack I looked up is just a real estate guy and not related to the actor at all. So anyways,
Okay.
So you probably shouldn't have cold called him then, right? And said like, are you gluttony?
No, but yes, that scene, what you're saying, it has the energy of like Mills is so excited to tell the story because he thinks it will make him look legit to this older cop
Yeah.
that he's not clocking as Somerset tells his story, that the cooler thing is having to never have fired your gun.
Right.
Right? He's like, that's the ultimate flex on Somerset's part.
And he's not even flexing. That's why it's such a good flex.
Right.
He's just like, oh yeah, funny thing about me.
And Mills basically isn't listening because he's like prepping his monologue he's about to deliver in his head.
Right. He's asking that question to tell that
It's
story.
great. He has the nervous energy, and I don't even know if he's doing it, but is he like turning around in the car? Is he like
yeah,
look?
he's like,
Yeah.
He is,
Somerset's
yeah.
sitting behind him
That's what it is. Yeah.
and Pitt's in front.
Yeah.
Who's driving?
Who's driving?
Yeah,
I think
feel like neither of
Gluttony's
them are
driving.
Yeah.
All
Driving
right,
himself
so
to
the next,
morgue.
the next victim is greed, which that's pretty short, I feel like, because that leads them right to sloth. Like greed is just
Right,
that
because
sort of boardroom.
they don't see gluttony written until later.
Right.
Greed is the first time they're seeing the word put there.
Right. But right, it's in that big fancy office.
Yeah.
Greed on the carpet.
But Somerset basically immediately is
Yeah,
just
to cut
like,
his pound of flesh.
this is not the energy of someone who of one random killing.
Right.
Because first of all, everyone's going like, the guy's fat. He probably ate himself to death. His heart collapsed, whatever. We're not sure this is a homicide.
Right.
Somerset's like, there's something intentional happening here. And not only that, he basically recognizes the signature of an artist.
Yes. Right. This is impressive.
Right. And then he just feels like greed is someone's working in a style.
Right. And then
There's a pattern.
The sloth murder.
I thought you were going very fast.
It goes right to that. That's what I'm saying. The first three are really fast.
Right, because there's the autopsy scene where we see his big old hog, and they also like have pieces of plastic that are pulled from his intestine, right? Or from his stomach.
Reggie Cathy doing a great job there.
The best.
Yeah. He's great, and that leads Somerset back to gluttony, and I can't remember what sequencing. I think this is after they find the greed body, where he ends up back at gluttony,
Yes.
at Gluttony's apartment, right? Doing the second round.
The plastic was from the floor.
Yeah,
where the dresser had basically been dragged.
The fridge.
The fridge, yes.
Mm.
But like that kind of thing of like the plastic was fed to him. Like he's clearly, Somerset recognizes that he's dealing with someone who knows the way a good detective is going to process the case.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a weird like puzzle kind of escape room logic of like, well, I'm feeding the plastic to him so you find it. And then try to trace where the plastic came from, which means this was dragged and put back.
Yeah,
that's where gluttony was written.
Does the dinner is gluttony, and then there's like the letter on the wall too, right?
Yes,
the dinner is after Sloth.
Okay,
the dinner
that was
with
my question.
Paltrow. No, it's like because I feel like it's like once they go to Sloth, that's when they're like, okay,
this is a franchise. This guy's gonna do
right. This is we now understand this concept. Somerset's like this is the 7 deadly sins. And the Sloth sequence is just so nasty. It's nasty.
It's nasty.
Nasty.
It is nasty.
Fucking nasty.
Yeah.
That sequence where Somerset is explaining the pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
And laying it all out and being like, these are 3 sins. This guy's going to do it 4 more times. There's a really good every frame a painting.
Every frame painting,
yes,
sure.
Video from years and years ago about the way Fincher does dialogue scenes and how he constructs his coverage to tell you who's winning a scene, that there's never sort of like meaningless coverage. And you do watch the evolution of all the scenes, especially the scenes with Arlie Ermey and the two of them. And he really breaks down how there's an arc to basically Mills trying to enter himself into those conversations.
Right.
That first one is really Ermey and Freeman talking to each other. And Pitt's in the background.
Right.
The coverage is done from in between Ermey and Freeman. And Pitt's like struggling to get in there.
Right.
And as the movie goes on, the whole thing kind of shifts to them finally becoming equals and partners.
Right. It's sort of after the dinner that they are more of a unit. And before then, it's, Pitt's also just annoying in all the crime scenes.
Yes.
He's got this like irritating kind of know-it-all attitude, even though it's like none of these crime scenes are ones you'd walk in and you'd be like, classic guy, gluttony situation. This happens all the time. I remember, it's like, but he has that attitude.
And what leads him to Sloth is another what you're saying earlier, Griffin. It's like the more of the clue, the breadcrumb trails he's left for them, which is like, this is another thing that a kid told me about, which is like they used his severed hand to like put a fucking handprint on the wall. And then like, a bit, but it's behind the painting and the widow is seen.
The lore of like all of the murders, I feel like that was a thing that was talked about so much between my friends and I, and like what it meant, what each sin meant, and like why they were tortured the way they were. And like I remember like breaking down Sloth. It's like Sloth is like you're lazy or whatever. And then like they took a picture of the guy each day. Like you heard so much of that shit on the playground.
It's the hand he used to jack off with.
You jack off, the 7-man's gonna get you. That was like that was what was going around.
It was like Bloody Mary, yeah.
Now Sloth, he's also like a drug dealer and a pedophile, right?
That's what they say. Yeah.
Like,
but acquitted, by the way. I was making a fucking Spacey joke.
Well,
Sorry.
Sure. I mean, you didn't have to say you were making a Spacey joke, but now we have to once again say that anything about him is alleged, I guess. I'm just worried he's going to sue us.
You're worried he's going to sue
That
you?
man is very online. Have you seen his YouTube account?
I'm just like, getting sued by him would be like a spa day.
And let me tell you,
that's the best case scenario.
The guy's winning cases too for
It's
whatever
true.
reason.
Left and right.
This guy's got fucking Clarence Darrow on the case. And also Kevin Spacey has played Clarence Darrow in a movie.
It's a real shame that Spacey didn't represent himself in court. That would have been the performance of a lifetime.
Jesus Christ. All right, look.
Here's what I want to say.
You go ahead.
To Wiger's point.
Okay.
We're building off each other here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that thing of like what John Doe gets to later in the film of like, he's got this self-aggrandizing thing of just like, I'm the best serial killer of all time. Like, this is going to be the Wikipedia entry that everyone reads for centuries, right? The intentionality of what I did, where he's just like getting off on the cat and mouse game part of it. So it's like they go and speak to the wife of Grade. She looks at the photos of the crime scene. She notices that the painting in the background is upside down.
Right.
It's the thing, I don't remember if it's before this or after this, when like Freeman is sort of trying to train Pitt. And he says, like, you have to find the one detail that no one else would pick up on.
Yes, right.
That's always the thing that's going to help you crack the case, is the one detail that feels like it doesn't matter that everyone else would miss, right? And the painting is such a perfect example. Why is the painting upside down? That's so bizarre. That can't be for no reason. And then that great scene of them going and being like, well, here, we're going to solve the mystery. Take the painting off the wall. Fuck, nothing.
Right.
Oh, the wrapping in the back of the painting. If we cut it open, there'll be the answer. Fuck, nothing. And like Pitt's ready to give up. And Freeman's like, there's no way it doesn't mean something.
Yeah.
They just have to keep on hitting it until like, right, the fingerprints show up. And even then, it's not a clear clue, but they know like something's leading them to this painting.
Right.
And the painting's going to lead them to the next thing.
I love that detail that Spacey, the Se7en killer, like on the back of the painting, he like changed the screws so that it would hang up in the correct way.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. This
guy's messing with screws. He's truly depraved.
I think he might have a screw loose.
This movie, it's like many a noir and like the Batman, which is like, you know, a Batman version of this movie.
I had not seen this movie since seeing the Batman.
Right.
And it is absolutely absurd. I had forgotten just how indebted the Batman is to
highly
everything.
indebted.
The fucking handwriting in this film.
To much of Fincher, but mostly this.
Yes,
right.
mostly this.
I feel like Morgan Freeman would have figured out who the Riddler was like almost instantly.
Yes.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright really does get kind of screwed over. But both movies both this and the Batman they are detectives and they are figuring clues out, but they are being led on a path. This
is the thing I strongly dislike about the Batman.
Sure.
A movie we've already devoted an entire Patreon episode to.
Right.
A movie I love on vibes.
Good vibes, sure.
And I think the fundamental failing of that movie is it's 3 hours long and he's a terrible detective.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Because the audience should not, like, the ideal is the audience should not get ahead of it. Like, no. and even this, like, I noticed in this scene, and I don't know how intentional this was. It feels like it's intentional, but like the way that scene is shot, where they're pulling the picture off the wall, the whole time it's framed where there's another painting in the background, and it's kind of like a visual red herring. I feel like for the viewer, it's kind of like a misdirect of like, oh, maybe they're investigating the wrong painting, but it's not that. Like, it's like this film, I think, is so good at parceling out information in such a way where you don't ever anticipate what the next move is. And then the other thing it does, and to skip ahead a little bit, but one thing I love about the script is that they break his fucking plan because of you know, Somerset's insight of like, we can see which books he checked out, we can find out who this guy is, and they go to his apartment, and now they interrupt his fucking trail of breadcrumbs that he set up, and that drives him like almost mad.
Yeah, I love that. I also think that the Riddler is as bad as Batman is as a detective. The Riddler is a bad serial killer in the Batman. His clues
I
are
actually like the Riddler, and I think he has some interesting ideas. I don't know if you guys heard him on Rogan. He makes some interesting points. No, I feel like that's a movie where I'm an idiot and I feel an hour ahead of Batman, whereas this is a movie where even rewatching it, I struggle to remember, like, right, how do they figure that out?
Sure.
And it's a movie that really does actually impress you in watching the investigative skills of its characters.
I mean, this movie's also an hour shorter than Batman, and that is my main note, as is yours, about the Batman, which is I wouldn't think about it as hard if it wasn't so goddamn long.
Yes.
Like, you know. But I also think, like, the Riddler in Batman, what's his ideology? He wants to expose corruption, I suppose, but he's really crazy.
He hates Nepo babies.
He hates a Nepo baby.
Yeah.
And
he wrote the New York Magazine article.
Like, John Doe, obviously, all right, so the gluttony guy, he's being punished for his gluttony. Fine. The greed guy is rich.
Mm-hmm.
The sloth guy is the one where it actually doesn't There's no poeticism to it. He's a bad person
Yes.
who's been given a horrible punishment, but they don't really seem to interact, right? Like, he's not slothful.
He's a drug addict, right? Like, is that a part
Yeah,
of
That's
this?
the
guess.
argument. The
I
guy spends a lot of
guess.
time in bed, zonked out on drugs,
But
on the wacky
Jesus
juice.
Christ, what?
Yeah.
Oh,
This guy-
I'm coming around.
This guy's so whipped out of his mind on reefer. They make it clear that he's a pothead,
yes,
right?
he likes the wacky tobacco. Sure.
He's ODing on pot left and right.
I wonder how long it would take me to be upset if the Se7en killer tried to get me for Sloth. If I was just
What do you mean by
he
upset?
tied me to a bed, I'm like, all right. I think I'd just be fine with it for a while.
Also, you're like, also that's in? All right. Hey, okay.
I imagine John Doe breaking into your house and you being like, if we can relocate this to Quincy, I'm down.
right.
I just don't want to do it in LA.
I feel like he'd be hard pressed to figure out which sin to get me for.
Well, also, he'd have a heart attack before he made it up all your stairs, Mitch. Let's be clear. The guy's in okay shape, but there are only so many flights a man can walk up before his heart gives out.
He comes in and you've got a plate of spaghetti you're already eating.
I'm passed out in the spaghetti. Oh shit. By the way, the Sloth, we got a true alien chest burster moment.
Oh yeah,
with the Sloth that they didn't tell him that he was going to have a reaction.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It's such a good jump scare in that it's not accompanied by any music or sting. Like, it's just him being alive. You're like, this is a skeleton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, this is a dead person.
Yeah.
And so it still gets me to this day.
And it comes alive in like just a way where it's just like, it's not even like it is kind of a jump scare, of course, but it's not like, it's just a man gasping for breath.
McGinley, John C. McGinley, is a very well-established character actor at this point in time.
Yeah.
He's got very high billing on this movie. His name's on the poster and everything.
Pretty hot year for him. Isn't this Office Space?
Yeah.
Oh, is that 95?
Well, no. Office Space is 99.
Oh, it's
Office
later.
Space is
Okay.
late. He was always hot.
He was always hot.
He was always hot.
Yeah.
But it's one of those fascinating performances where you're like, oh, he's like fifth build. He's a really well-established guy. You rarely see his face in this movie.
He's in a lot of scenes and you forget that he's in them.
oh, it's still, they make him sort of the main SWAT guy anytime there's a SWAT team.
Right.
But the nature of the role is that he's usually in very frantic scenes, holding a gun in front of his face, wearing a mask, or like in quickly cut sequences where you're never really seeing him, where you're like, this guy was on set a lot for a performance that a lot of people could watch and not ever realize that was him.
Yeah. He's in The Rock the year after, and he's in, like, he did a lot of this around now. A lot of like guys with machine guns.
Yeah.
Before I feel like Office Space moves him into the boss territory.
There's the infamous story that when they wrote the pilot script for Scrubs, his character in the script said, think a John C. McGinley type.
Right.
And a bunch of John C. McGinley's friends reached out to him and they were like, hey, so are you doing this or what?
Right.
And he was like, what do you mean? They're like, I got sent a breakdown to read for this thing. And the script, it says a John C. McGinley type. So I'm just, before I go in for it, I assume you passed. And he was like, no one fucking got me an appointment for this.
Wow.
Casting didn't want to see him.
They do that to actors all the time, like actors who haven't been broken through, and they're like, this type, and it's like, just hire that person.
Hire the fucking person.
He's available, right?
And he was like, I basically had to beg to get a read.
It's also insane to me that he is a gun guy early on, because I just don't even think of him. Was he like a former military man or something? I don't understand why he is like put in these military roles, or like this in The Rock.
And Platoon too.
Yeah.
He's a big, intense guy.
I think that's just it. He early on was playing that kind of stuff, and that's what he starts being cast as. But no, he went to Syracuse University and then Tisch, the New York University School of the Arts, Griffin.
Oh, I'm familiar.
They're not the military.
They're not
associated with the U.S. military in any way that I know of.
It's harder. It's harder than
of course. Yeah, it's more. It's a more difficult boot camp.
Yes.
But yeah, like Platoon is kind of his first major role.
Yeah.
And then like he's in a lot of Oliver Stone movies. Mm-hmm. He's in Point Break. He's so good in Point Break.
Oh fuck. He's Blue Flame
like
Special,
him.
right? Yeah.
Griff, have you ever heard that they're looking for a Griffin Newman type and
Great
not
question.
had the audition for it, or like they've been like, I'm sure it's happened.
You know what has happened? I've been sent like a lookbook where my picture is used.
That's
Oh, wow.
wild.
You know, when like people are doing like
Really?
very low budget things or short films or whatever, they don't have previous work to show. So they put together like a 20-page, like,
Right.
here are images of what I want to look like. And then they'll have these sort of character breakdowns where they use photos of different actors in movies that are sort of a similar type. And I've gotten sent those sometimes for like things where they're interested in me, and sometimes other people going up for them in the same way. They're like, did you ever? Have you had that happen, Mitch?
I heard that for this movie, for Gluttony, they said Mike Mitchell type, but
And you were like 13.
I know.
At the time.
I mean, I'm like, Jesus, they really did their research on me to figure out 13-year-old me was a good type for Gluttony.
Think Mike Mitchell in 25 years.
I've heard things like that before, like where people like they like said they wanted a U type, but I'm not sure how valid that was, and also
But that's
probably
like-
much smaller projects.
When people have sent me like the lookbook things and my face is included, sometimes I don't even think like, oh, this person who put this together is a fan of something I did. I feel like they just Googled like cuck with glasses and they grabbed the first 5. I'm like, I don't take this as any compliment. I'm like, maybe this is just, it's a cheap image to license.
Handsome man with
Yeah,
glasses.
shut the fuck up.
What were you gonna say? Were you gonna
I
make
was
fun of me?
no, I wasn't gonna make fun of you. I was gonna say the thing that I remember where you were part of a tableau unexpectedly was something someone sent me, which was someone had put together like an Instagram story that was like the hottest big men of all time, and it was like in the background was like, I need a big boy. It was like that song was playing. And like it was just, it was going through a bunch of different like famous actors, and then it gets to you. And I was like, oh, all right. I felt very proud of you, which is looking good.
Which also is insane that they got to me in that the big actors of all time. It
Yeah,
doesn't
how
make-
long is that song?
This is like 45 minutes into it.
Okay. I want to talk about the dinner scene.
Yes. So the next scene is the dinner scene. Do you like that they live underneath the railroad?
I like all the details.
It's
of
so
it.
me too.
funny.
Fucking great.
Me
It's
too.
the funniest part. I think it is like at this point in the movie, it's like this is the zaniest thing that happens in the movie is their house
it's
like
also-
truly shaking like crazy.
I think this is the true artistry of this screenplay, right? The secret artistry of like, the fact, as I was saying, Andrew Kevin Walker, I think relates to the Paltrow character more than anyone else, makes her not feel like a plot functionary.
Right.
Where it's like this character exists for the sake of the reversal, right? Not the reversal, the twist at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'd be so easy in most versions of this film to, the moment this character's introduced, go like, she's fucking dead meat.
100%.
There's no reason she's included.
Why are we
unless
meeting this character?
something, right. That feeling in thrillers like this,
Yeah.
where it's really tough to introduce a character and not have them feel like there's a target on their head from the beginning. Otherwise, why are we even spending any time with them, right? And these scenes are so well written and charming,
Mm-hmm.
and have such a weird level of like character to them, between the apartment, between the way she calls at the office, asks Pitt to hand the phone to Somerset accepts the supper invitation, where you're just like, maybe this is just they needed comic relief. Maybe this is just like a little glimpse of light. It doesn't make you feel like she's a target because she's so much more realized and specific than most of these things are. And then even just down to the apartment, where they say the thing about like, every time we came to look at the apartment, they would only let us see it for 5 minutes at a time.
Right.
It's such a funny detail.
Good joke.
Right, because it also serves as like characterization,
Yes.
and it like kind of informs like Pitt's character as like a human being. And so like if you're just watching this movie cold, and I do think that honestly this movie plays better watching it a second time. I think this is one of those
I do
twist movies that like just knowing everything going in, it just all that stuff hits more with more intensity. But like to your exact point, it's like that just seems like it's serving as like, as like characterization. It's how well structured it is. Like you aren't getting ahead and being like, okay, she's going to be the last victim. You aren't already anticipating.
No, they do
that.
such a good job of balancing that with her, just her screen time and what her character is. And I would love to see this movie without. In my mind, I've always known that her head was in the box forever, even probably from the playground.
Same. I know what
days
you
or
mean. It's
whatever.
hard to remember not knowing that.
I definitely did not know that the first time I saw it.
See, I don't know. I think I probably I don't know a world where I didn't know. I maybe didn't the first time I watched it, but I don't. I think that I did. But I would love to have watched this as an adult, not knowing it, and if I would be surprised by it. I think I would. I think that it's a surprising ending.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, just
It's a bit of a
especially
surprise.
it's especially
for one
because
character.
the amount of energy they put into making her feel like a real person.
Yeah.
The longer that goes on, the more you think, well, they couldn't possibly decapitate her and put it in a box. You know, where you're like, that speaks to the fundamental darkness of the script that everyone reacted to so strongly. Of just like, you can't do that. You can do that. Jason Voorhees can do that to a character who has been on screen for only 2 minutes. You know, like these are the rules of these types of movies, is you can introduce a character and make them so awful or so silly that no one's actually going to feel bad if they die. But you can't hire like an actress who's like a major star on the rise, give her like 15 minutes of scenes that have some real weight and charm to them, and then do the worst thing imaginable to her.
Yeah.
Don't you feel, though, that when later she reveals her pregnancy to Somerset and
That's
his
a big
reaction,
clue, yeah.
his reaction is our reaction, which is like, no, then you're truly fucked. Like that you have that kind of reaction of like, now the loss of you would be so profound. Not that it wouldn't be profound before, that like there's, I don't know, a tragic air like settling around her.
But like Mitch, I never had the luxury of watching this movie without knowing where it's going.
Right. Me neither.
And I was trying to do the hypothetical exercise watching it this time. I'm like, if I'm watching this cold in the theater and no one's told me anything, and I'm with my stupid brain, I'm like trying to figure out the story math of this. Like, why is he making this choice as a screenwriter? What would this be setting up for later? I do think maybe, I assume, the more conventional arc is, now that Somerset knows this, the end goal of this movie is for him to convince Pitt to leave the force.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Like, don't, whatever you think you're doing here, it's not going to
The reason to disclose that information, I'm like, maybe the tragic ending of this movie is he convinces Pitt to retire and he re-ups. He doesn't leave the force or whatever it is. It's sort of this cautionary tale of a guy. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But like Somerset was too deep in. There was no getting out. He was able to save the soul of this guy and give him an out and have a family and all that sort of shit. But yeah, the dinner scene is so good. Freeman is doing this thing with the napkin. They were like talking to him at dinner, and like Paltrow's grilling him more and asking him about why he never married. And he's sort of dodging the question. And he's like playing with his napkin, and he's like tying it around his hand like he's a little child. Right. And it's so disarming where you just feel like, oh, no one's actually invited this guy out socially like this in possibly 2 decades.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a good call. He has not had a social life at all, except with Nomi, of course. Right. His best bud.
His metronome. But that's a roommate.
No, but I
that's
think
a life.
I think he might bring it to like a Chinese restaurant and just sort of set it down and eat some dumplings.
But that's what I love. He's
or
like,
what if he brought it to this dinner and he was just, do you mind if I puts it on a chair next to me?
Can I bring my spouse? It's like a Lars and the Real Girl situation. Do we have to pretend like this is a human being? No, I just like that there's something very like childlike and awkward about him. He tries to brush off the invitation.
Yeah, right.
And then once he's there, he kind of loves
being normal. Like, because he's so good at being normal when in a crime scene where a man ate too much spaghetti and got kicked in the tummy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, he is reacting to that. Like, Pitt reacts to that by going like, ew, and like going, blah, like, Somerset is like pretty cool and collected in all of this because that's his job, right? He's become so good at like the waves crash against him and he's like, like whatever.
But that's different from like sitting at dinner and having someone go like, so are you seeing anybody?
I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow, circa 1995. Press you for goss.
Yes.
Who could resist? John Doe would. He says he likes it.
Paltrow,
he puts her head in a box.
Paltrow is just so fascinating as a cultural figure, right?
You mean like the totality of her cultural, like, are we including like Goop?
Yes.
We do all
endorsing
of it, the
Rick
whole
Caruso for mayor.
I think it's
Did she endorse Rick Caruso?
She did, yeah.
Wow. Mm.
She said, I'm Gwyneth from LA and I'm voting for Rick. Yeah.
He would have made the 7 City look like the Grove.
I think there are a lot of actresses of her era who came in with like a lot of hype, right?
Sure.
and we're sort of like,
Who are you thinking of?
like Julia Ormond,
Sure.
Gretchen
Mol.
Mol.
Yes.
Or even you compare to someone like Mira Sorvino, who like got an Oscar very young and then kind of could never top that or whatever it is,
was
right?
Kneecapped by Mr. Weinstein,
Right.
of course. Yeah.
Yes,
But you're still absolutely. Yeah.
none of these people are direct analogs, but they're all in this similar sphere, right?
Right.
Where you're like, on paper, she's someone who either that should be the beginning of her having like a Jodie Foster-like career, or she's like, oh, isn't that weird that Gwyneth Paltrow won the Oscar when she was like 28 and then her career completely tapered off? And instead you're like, this is someone who's going to be wildly famous until the day she dies. But what she represents now is so bizarrely different.
Yes.
And she is such an odd figure that I fall into the trap of being like, was she ever a good actress? Like, am I going to rewatch her performances and find that they're bullshit? Because I do think there's certain people, I don't want to take stray shots at people who we don't need to, right? But there's certain actresses who I feel like had the heat. And then you watch the performances 20 years later and you're like, I see a couple tricks going on here. But in retrospect, it was kind of clear they didn't have a lot of depth, right? They had like a couple like tricks. They were good on camera. They were right. There was right
So
place,
beautiful.
right time, but there was not a sustainable like craft here.
Yeah.
And then you watch Paltrow anytime she's good in something, and you're like, holy fucking shit. When she was locked in, she's locked in, and she can still choose to be locked in.
It's been a while.
Yeah, but then anytime she
she's awesome in
tries,
this. Yeah.
like Contagion, she's got a very small part, but you're like, she's fucking acting.
I think that's the last time, though. I mean, I enjoy her in the Marvel movies sometimes, obviously, and then there are others where you're like,
right.
I can tell that you don't remember you were in
But
this.
the 3 proper Iron Man movies, she's fantastic in. Royal Tenenbaum, she is fantastic in.
Well, Two Lovers as well.
Two Lovers,
That's
she's
my
incredible
favorite performance from her.
That dinner scene to me is just it's the moment where I wrote down just a really sweet. It is just this. I think this may be the sweetest scene in the movie.
She's so
What about the
good.
gluttony murder? That's not sweet.
I thought that was pretty sweet too. Because
okay, right, all right.
I mean, I thought it was like that's sweet. Like in the different
Top
way.
10 sweet scenes in 7. No, yeah, it's a real spoonful of honey in a movie that you kind of are desperate for, like any kind of normal human interaction.
It is weird that she lights one of her goop vagina candles in that
She
scene
does.
though too.
Yeah.
And-
It's
and-
just
and-
broken, but
Yeah.
Right, she gives.
But they show
him
it up
jade
close.
egg.
they show it up close, but yeah, it's not directly referenced in dialogue. The things I love in that scene is first off, just talking about how unprepared they are for the city. The dogs who are way too fucking big for a
Yeah.
modest apartment in a city.
Calls
It's
them
just
as
like
kids.
great. Yeah, calls them her kids. And then also the other thing is like there's a moment where, and it just, Brad Pitt's character is almost cartoonishly dumb in this, but there's a moment where, but it all works. There's a moment where Morgan Freeman asks for a glass of wine and he brings him like a fucking tumbler of wine.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of unspoken and Somerset just like looks at it at a certain point, but that's it. But it's just like, I don't know. I love that shit. It's good.
And they're like high school sweethearts.
Yes, I love. You do feel that vibe of like the two of them work well together in the movie. I think there's just a moment where he like gets into bed with her and he's like, "I love you," and it like works extremely well for whatever reason. But
Did you write that was sweet in your notes?
I wrote that was another sweet. That's one of my other sweet moments. But the earthquake set, they used that to trick people that came. The people who visited set.
Really?
The apartment, they'd like shake it
yeah.
and make them
like
think
they'd
there's
be
an
like,
earthquake.
take a look at this set, and they'd be like, turn it on.
Fuck with execs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Have the money fall out of their pockets.
Yeah, right after that is the conversation between Somerset, or we're pretty close to that, between
I
Somerset
said
and Tracy.
that Freeman's reaction to her saying
Yeah.
she's pregnant is the moment in his performance that kills me. The moment in her performance that kills me, I think, is just such a good choice and such an honest reaction. Is he gives his whole spiel about him and his ex-partner aborting the child that they had, and he has that like heartbreaking line where he says like, I know it was the right decision. There's not a day that goes by that I don't regret it. And then he sort of gives his advice to her in that sort of like Freeman authority way, right? In the voice of God way, where you're just like, anything this guy says in this position is going to hold so much weight. And just like, look, whatever you decide to do, if you have that kid, like, move far away. If you decide not to keep it, never, ever tell him. And then he says, and it's sort of like this intensity of her sitting there and like sort of clenching her tears, knowing the weight of what's being said, but trying to like maintain composure to diner. And then he says, and just promise me if you have that kid, you spoil it every single day of its life. And it's him making the joke to cut the tension.
Right.
And Paltrow's decision as an actor is that's the thing that finally breaks her down and makes her cry. Rather than laughing, it's like the empathy of that moment is the thing that's finally too heartbreaking for her to take.
It is heartbreaking. Yeah.
It's the acknowledging the reality of the situation, but also the fact that he is being that thoughtful in the moment is the thing that finally breaks down her guard. And she like loses it and then smiles to sort of acknowledge like that's a sweet thing to say. But at first it's just like, this is too fucking sad.
She's so good in that.
She's so good.
And she's so good. I mean, I love 90s Paltrow. I mean, like, she's so good in Emma. She's so good in Shakespeare. She's great in Sliding Doors. She's great in Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Tenenbaums, I feel like she got lost doing too much sort of treacly dramatic stuff like Sylvia and Proof and like these movies where it's like she's angling for another Oscar nom and why, you know what I mean? Like she couldn't quite. Like
she was getting like Nicole Kidman runoff parts, which is not what she should have been doing.
And then after that, of course, it's just like Two Lovers and Iron Man come out in the same year, and it's like, you know, The Road Not Taken is Two Lovers. Like Iron Man is just like, great, now you just do this.
She entered the world of hard science. You're forgetting that she changed her whole perspective and tried to focus on products that absolutely been backed up by serious health commissions.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Also, she was married to Mordecai.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen Mordecai?
No, I have not.
It's on my list. It's at the top of my list.
So do you know the thing in Mordecai, a movie that I contend is actually impossible to watch, like physically impossible to sit through without fast forwarding. Even when you would go to see it in a movie theater, the projector would be like, don't worry, I'm hurrying it up. We're not going to play this. It's the only movie that was projected at 2x speed.
Yeah, right. The guy's just cranking it real hard.
Run. Yeah. So the hands are on fire. Gwyneth Paltrow is Mordecai's wife in that film, right? Mordecai, he of the poster and the silly comedy mustache.
Yes.
Right.
The beginning of the film, she's been away on some trip. She comes home and he goes, honey, you won't believe what happened while you were gone. And he turns around and reveals that he's grown the mustache while she was gone. And she sees the mustache and pukes in her mouth. And the runner for the rest of the film is that she hates the mustache so fucking much. And every time he tries to kiss her, she pukes.
Right.
That sounds good as hell.
Yeah, you're trying to get us not to watch this movie?
We like it.
What are you talking about?
We like it.
I just like that even in the movie Mordecai, Mordecai's wife is like, we're really going to build the whole movie around this guy and he's going to have the mustache the whole time.
That's really funny. Isn't there a character named Jock Strap in that movie?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that's Paul Bettany's character.
I believe so too. He's
also good.
Mordecai's body man. Yeah.
Because that's what led to all the Johnny Depp, Paul Bettany texts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. They check out books.
Mm-hmm.
They check out who's checking out Seven Deadly Sins books. That's what gets them to
Somerset gives Mills the reading list. Right. Mills goes and gets the cliff notes because the books are making his brain hurt.
Yes. Right.
No one must know what young people just don't know what Cliff's Notes are anymore, right? That's just like you would just look up a Wikipedia summary.
Even though it's one of the best jokes in Clueless. Does that mean that joke doesn't work anymore?
Probably.
When she says, she gives the Shakespeare quote.
Yeah.
And then she's like, that's such a good quote. Where'd you get it? She says, Cliff Notes. It's really funny. That doesn't mean anything to anyone anymore.
I don't think so.
No, it's too bad.
I remember when the first time I found out about Cliff Notes, there was probably someone making a joke to me. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And they were like, well, they sell these books that are like 50 pages and they just like dumb down the thing you're supposed to read for school.
Right.
So you can write a paper on it.
Right.
And I was like, and where do you get them? Back alleys? You have to know a guy. And they were like, Barnes and Noble. And I was like, this is legal?
This shit is in black market.
Do I have to show my ID? Did they not sell them if you're underage? And they're like, no, they let you. It's just wild. Everyone was conspiring to help us cheat for so long. As long as you paid.
I got them.
I had a couple of Cliff Notes. I do like that they're yellow, though, to be kind of like cheat, you know, like they're kind of like radioactive.
Yeah.
Like you can't like put them on a shelf and like not see them.
You know that John Waters quote about like if someone brings you home and they don't have any books on their shelves, don't sleep with them or whatever. What if you meet someone at a bar and you go back to their place and only Cliff Notes?
That's what we call the yellow shelf.
I'm a fan of the classics. You at least do hand stuff with them, right?
I would do hand stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. You would do a Cliff's Notes set,
You would do
which is a hand job. And maybe even a hand job where like halfway and you're kind of like, do you want to wrap this up? Like,
Yeah.
do you want? I can hand this over to you.
Are we bored?
Wait, fuck. Oh, isn't
By the
there-
way, I'm going to
Nick,
put together a bookshelf today. I didn't realize this quote.
John Waters heard about your ass.
Mitch assembles a bookshelf, just puts one Kindle on.
Nick, there's some video game where if you cheat, then everyone in the game calls you cheater. I can't remember what game it is now.
Oh yes,
Where it's like,
what the
hello,
fuck is that?
cheater. If you
Mm.
do a cheat, that's sort of what.
Cool.
that's sort of-
It's
anyway,
some point,
all right.
some Sierra point and click adventure or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Fuck is that?
Anyway, all right. So then, yeah, there's the whole sequence, the one action sequence in the movie, them
Shit.
chasing him through the rain.
Right.
You know,
It's so
that's-
fucking good.
That's so good.
it's so cool. That's
I forgot
when
how good it
Pitt
was.
breaks his arm.
Yeah,
Right.
Pitt genuinely broke his arm.
Right, and they had to write it into the movie.
Yeah. In the commentary, they say that like Pitt says, and I think Fincher is being modest, but Pitt's like basically none of that is in, and they're very, very complimentary of Andrew Kevin Walker's script, but they're basically none of the chase sequence is in the script. That was all like Fincher like figuring it out. And it is like, it's awesome. It's extended. The other thing is like, there's such a great sense of space in it. And then another element is like, it's not a linear pursuit. It's like they're keeping moments of like, where the fuck is this guy? Like they're trying to find him. And he's not sure. He gets surprised by him. Yeah. It's just really.
Oh yeah,
exceptional
that's
done.
right. They were so sick of chase sequences where you were like, oh, he's seeing where the guy went.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
following
yeah.
him, and then they wanted to have it be like you're losing track of this guy.
He really could be around any corner, and Pitt is playing it that way.
Yeah.
Can you make out Spacey at all in this sequence? Like, is it definitely him, or is there a chance some of this is
Great question.
double
it
or
must
different
be
actor?
somewhat of
Yeah.
a double, right?
He is the crime scene photographer earlier in the
Right.
movie. There's that because when they go
A
to
little
his
sort of Easter egg of him, yes.
right, but when they go and find the photos and Pitt puts it together, if you look back at that scene, it is Spacey wearing a wig doing a voice. It's like Spacey doing a Mad TV audition.
Yeah, I think that
Overplaying.
if you were a detective,
Right.
when you'd be like, that guy's weird.
Yeah.
we
That guy's-
should maybe
But
lock
I
this
would
guy for
also
being
find
weird.
crime scene photographers weird, possibly.
Yeah, but you'd be like, this guy's doing too much business. There's a little too much going on. He's overselling it. Yeah, but I do like that he's in there early. I mean, this is one of the infamous things about this movie is Spacey has already shot Swimming with Sharks, Outbreak, and Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Hence his quote, as I said, had gotten higher despite the movie's not coming out. He reads this part. They finally come back around to it and go, we'll meet your quote. Want to offer it to you. And his contractual demand is, don't credit me in the movie. Don't put me in the opening credits.
Certainly not in the open. He's in the closing credits, I believe.
Twice.
Right, but not in the opening
That was
credits.
the makeup.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But don't put me on the poster. None of that. And they went like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he said, if any of these 3 movies I've shot that are in the can blow up, which they might more so than anything I've done before up until now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a much bigger name by the time this movie comes out. And if there are 3 names on the poster, they spend the first half of this movie, hour plus, looking for the guy, and you never see his face.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to go, well, Kevin Spacey's going to be the
He's
guy.
in the credits.
Right,
Like
yeah.
anyone who's heard of him will be like, yeah, he's coming.
Right. So it's one of the few examples of like movie billing actually working to support the plot.
It adds to the mystique of this performance in this film, I think.
Absolutely.
Like, I think it was a thing you would know as a young person. Like, did you know, like, Spacey's not, you know, like that
Right.
was like a little
And
trivia
especially
fact.
when that year is him just kind of like growing his reputation, to have him just show up in the last 40 minutes.
Right.
Because it's such a brilliant structural move. I mean, that's a thing like Fincher talks about. He reads the script. He's on like page 5. He's like, it's a fucking buddy cop movie. I don't want to do this fucking thing.
I mean, he's getting Lethal Weapon vibes.
Right.
Like you said, yeah.
Right. And then he sticks a little further in and he's like, wow, this movie's darker than I thought it was.
Right.
And he's reading through it and he's like, this is not giving up. This movie is really dark. And then page 100, the killer walks in and goes, it's me.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm
Detectives!
physically holding the script in my hand. I can feel there are still like 40 pages left. And I'm so excited being like, I have no idea what happens in the remaining 40 pages.
Right.
The fuck is this movie doing if it plays its hand this early with who the guy is?
Also, it also just Spacey not putting his name in the opening. By the way, it just speaks to the character of that man. He's just kind of like a noble
Right.
guy.
Just the selflessness,
Selfless,
the
yeah, sure.
heroism.
I really hope he listens to this episode.
I hope he doesn't. I think he's bad.
He's bad in K-Pax. Yeah, I agree.
Before, is he? Is
Yes.
he?
Yes.
Is this a bad performance?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I believe you.
Yes.
I read the book. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
Yeah, years
You've
ago.
never told me that.
I
David.
read K-Pax, the novel.
Both of you have
I
read
read
K-Pax?
K-Pax. I think the book
Jesus.
is not great. Did you like
I
it?
don't remember it being particularly good.
Yeah,
I've never
it's
seen
kinda bad.
K-Pax, I don't think, but I've read the book.
I've seen the movie. Mitch, have you seen the movie?
I feel like I've seen parts of K-Pax. I also don't think I ever, when Spacey puts mustard on a roll, I don't ever think like, even when he is the photographer and he's like, hey, let me take a picture, buddy. I'm like, that's over the top. But when he's just being his normal, like Spacey kind of like when he's like in this movie too, just being kind of a psycho and just being like a quiet speaking Spacey guy. I think that he's fun to watch.
He is good. It's it's the thing that's fucking tough to talk about because you don't want to seem like you're praising him, but the performance is good. I think there's a really clear divining line, which is just like, post-American Beauty. I think he just gets so fucking up his own ass and just is doing things like playing a whatever.
Are you
like
sure about that? When it becomes, I mean, when the guy
becomes a true Mad TV sketch
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that and also things like playing like when he was like when he was like 50 and he's playing like a 27-year-old Bobby Darin in a biopic that he always wanted to make.
Directing
Oh,
it.
that
So
movie
fucking
wasn't
insane.
indulgent at all. How dare you?
But we talk about Spacey a little bit, but like he always talks about, and especially like in the post-American Beauty era where he's just like, I've won 2 Oscars. I'm now a movie star, a fully
Right.
minted movie star. And it became so clear that like, in his mind, he is Jack Lemmon. That's the star that he's always looked up to. And now he's going on talk shows and he's doing all his impressions.
Right, he wants to be a little bit of that, right? Like the guy who can do kind of a variety show as well as win an Oscar.
Right, comedy
yeah.
and drama.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the year where he breaks out largely because of 2 roles where he plays stone cold,
Right. He plays
creepy to the
scariest
bone
people in
psychopath.
the movie.
Yeah.
Like in both Seven and The Usual Suspects, in the worlds of those movies, he's the worst, scariest person.
Maybe the worst human being who's ever
In
lived.
the universe of the
Yes.
movie. Exactly.
Right.
Like, yes.
And once again, we watch him now and we're like, I understand why he was good at playing these things, right? And then he enters this period, like really, I'd say like 2000. He doesn't make it out of the 20th century alive, right? He goes into the year 2000. He's like, now America loves me and I'm going to be charming. Podcast The Ride did a very good episode on this that is untitled and behind multiple paywalls so that they don't experience any illegal action. And I apologize for directing any attention over there. But just the weird era of Spacey just wanting to be like rock on tour, like I'm singing John Lennon covers at a 9/11 tribute concert and shit like that.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
But, so much of our modern cultures need to talk about like, how do you like address bodies of work that contain canceled people in a culture where people are getting canceled at an alarming rate, where we find out more and more awful things about almost everyone all the time, right? And Spacey's been this guy where I've always thought him as an example where I'm like, well, The Cosby Show is impossible to watch now. You cannot watch
That's
The Cosby Show. Like the cognitive dissonance is too severe, right? But like, I don't think Se7en is negatively affected by Kevin Spacey because if anything, it kind of plays into it. I'm not saying it makes it better.
No, you're not wrong.
But like American Beauty, I would imagine is impossible to watch right now. In a way, I think it already wasn't holding up great.
Sure, yeah.
But when that movie is premised on the idea of like, what a normal seeming suburban dad who then turns out to be a little weirder than we thought, that falls apart. Versus this movie, when Kevin Spacey shows up and he's like fucking cut his fingertips off, you're like, yeah, no, classic Kevin Spacey role.
The thing with him is post this and pre-American Beauty, it's really interesting the roles that they find for him, essentially playing like movie star creep. So like Time to Kill, he's the evil lawyer. Okay, so but that's probably being made sort of before he wins the Oscar.
Yeah.
LA Confidential, where it's like he is a quote unquote hero in that movie.
Yeah.
He's
but
good
he's
in that.
a weird creep. He's really good in it. He's kind of like a sort of slime ball.
The Negotiator.
The Negotiator, it's like, yes,
Kind of
he's
like a
the
bitter,
hero,
sad sack.
but right, there's sort of like a weird edge to this guy.
Yeah.
Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which I just watched in my effort to finally watch every single Clint Eastwood directed film. I watched it, in which he's playing a gay art collecting murderer, a role that he definitely just had nothing to relate to in there. And then A Bug's Life, in which he plays an evil cricket.
Yes.
That's his in between this and American Beauty.
Yes.
Those are all the roles. Like nothing, they're starring roles, but they're not like, heroes.
Right.
But like a perfect example of a guy like that who wins the Oscar, and then you're like, what does Hollywood do with this guy now, right? He's too weird. He's too creepy. Is he going to get caught just playing like villains in Stallone action movies?
Right.
And then that's a run where he makes like 5 or 6 really good choices in a row. He kind of nails it. He wins his second Oscar.
Does win a second Oscar.
And then he just goes absolutely insane and kind of completely loses the plot.
But the thing he does right after, he's horribly miscast in Pay It Forward.
Yes.
He's horribly miscast in The Shipping News. These are big movies, big Oscar movies.
Now he's in the Jack Lemmon road where he wants to be the sympathetic
Right.
sort of like sad sack, but like the world has shit upon him and he's a good guy fighting to get what he deserves kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's trying to ignore the fundamental creepiness at that point.
Right. But he's very good in Se7en. Before we discuss the finale of Se7en, we haven't really, do we need to say anything else about Lust, Pride? Those are the 2 murders, the late murders.
And we talked about
Leland Orser's
who's incredible. And
masterclass
Michael
there.
Massey,
Oh, so good.
who is,
The
I don't know.
king of the scumbags.
Yes. Do you guys know this?
No, tell us.
Michael Massey, the other actor in that scene, they're cross-cutting, who's the one who forces Leland Orser at gunpoint to do that horrendous killing. He is the man who shot Brandon Lee on the set of The Crow.
Oh my god!
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And is a guy who is like...
He was traumatized by it.
very open about the fact that it basically broke him psychologically. He was so traumatized by it, he like didn't act in movies for several years. He was like, maybe I can never act again. Then he went to do like a regional theater. Then he moved up to theater. He finally got sort of like drawn back into movies, but was always very reluctant and was one of these guys who was like kind of always openly like processing
He did a lot
the
of voice
trauma
stuff. He had
of
a
the
good
thing.
voice. Yeah.
But whenever he was cast in roles like this, there is that weird edge of just like, this is a guy who isn't playing how haunted he is.
He is also, he's the first villain in 24.
Yeah.
Like he is the first guy that Jack Bauer deals with.
Yes.
He's like the villain for the first half of the first season of 24.
Yeah.
He's so fucking good.
He was a credible actor and was a guy who was like so conclusively not at fault at all in the incident. And like, I think took more responsibility for it than he even should have because it's just like such a traumatizing thing. But I do think
when I did gun safety training for Tomorrow War, they told the Brandon Lee story, which I didn't even know. Like when they told the story, I didn't
like
even know
how that the
how it
specifics
went
of
down.
right.
Like
Well,
that
'cause
they
Tomorrow-
brought him to a shower, his trailer to shower, and that's when they came back and checked on him. That's when they found out that he was even shot.
Tomorrow War was pre-Rust, right?
Yes, pre-Rust. Yep.
Because that was same everything I'd worked on, except for maybe 1 or 2 really, really bad borderline illegal productions, would do like these big safety demonstrations anytime there's a gun on set.
Yes.
And sometimes like people would roll their eyes and go like, do we really need to grind everything to a halt for this?
Yeah.
It's been like 30 years. This hasn't happened since Brandon Lee.
That's that. And it was kind of like, look, there shouldn't be probably any guns in our country, but it was one of those things where I'm like, on sets, I'm like, that's jobs that people have. And just the fact that happened with Rust is so insane because as you saw, Griff, they're like so crazy, like about you checking because of the Crow, basically, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's like a thing where like, right, whoever the firearms expert is on set will like before each take, unload the gun, take out a flashlight, shine it through each individual barrel, show it to you that it's empty.
Before you
and then they have all these.
Yeah.
Right. And like they hand it to you the moment before they call action. They pull it from you the moment after they say cut.
Yeah.
And they basically have this like rule where they're like, if you're fucking around and doing bits with the gun, we take it away from you and we're not giving it back.
Yeah.
Like, fuck the production. It doesn't matter. If you're not responsible, we will not let that actor hold a gun anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. But Michael Massey died kind of tragically young.
He died of cancer. Yeah, a few years ago.
But always had this really intense power on screen in roles like this.
Yeah, he's great in this.
Yeah.
Leland Orser, obviously, also really good. A real Fincher type, too.
I mean, this movie just...
He's still dining out on this role.
Oh, yeah.
He's fantastic.
Stacked with great character actors, but I also love that almost none of them...
The bus driver from Speed as well.
Yes.
Is the library security guard.
Right.
I just love that almost none of these characters have names.
Yeah, I also love that the scumbags in this are like no one's leaning into like hey, well I'm a sleazeball. What do you want from me? Huh?
Right.
You know, they're all just kind of like he's even like no, I don't like my job, but what the fuck? That's what life is. You know, like they're all like and Richard Schiff's when he's the you know kind of shitty you know defense attorney later.
Yes.
He's Kevin Spacey. He's also like not playing it like a scuzzball. He's just like playing it like a guy.
The biggest character is Kevin Spacey as that photographer.
It is.
Yes.
Richard Schiff is really well cast. He's really good. Like he's a great actor and he can play, you know, a lot of stuff, but he's really good at that kind of chinless dude,
Yes.
you know.
But like you look at the proper credits at the end of this film, Leland Orser is credited as crazed man in massage parlor.
Which he's big too, but it just is so it's effective at that point. I mean,
It's really effective.
I feel like
Yeah.
the last couple kills are you kind of do. I mean, except they show up. It's crazy that we spend less time on them because it is like a big fucking knife that he
Well, that's the
fucks
whole-
someone to death.
But that's the whole thing, and I think that's a big part of the direction, obviously. But the way it's scripted is like we're not seeing any actual murders.
Yeah.
Like we see one murder, and it's the at the very end of the movie. You know,
That's
everything
true.
is in
Yeah,
the
we're only seeing
aftermath.
aftermath.
And
yeah.
And even then they like cut wide to when
Yeah.
the actual
They do.
gunshot happens.
They
You
do.
don't there's no like explosively bloody gag of John Doe being shot in the head. I just need to read this because JJ pulled this up. And it's an incredible quote. A Fincher interview from 2009. He said, I thought that what was pretty amazing about what Andy prescribed in his script and what he was so adamant about was that you don't need to see stuff. He unlocks the Pandora's box of your imagination in a really gripping way. Now you watch Law & Order SVU and they're walking in a hallways and they say, we found semen in the eye socket.
Right.
I would never do that. But we had a lot of people insisting they'd seen more than they did. I almost had a fist fight with a woman at a Beverly Hills cocktail party because she said, there's no need to make a stand-in of Gwyneth Paltrow's head to find in the box. You don't need to see that.
Right.
And I said, well, we didn't. And she said, oh, yes, you did. So the imagination, if properly primed, can do more than any army of makeup artists. That was always my thing. Get people to fear it, get them to see it in their heads. I do think people have false memories of images that are not anywhere near this film.
do we ever actually even see Ben Affleck's dick in Gone Girl? Or are we all just imagining it?
We're going to talk about it. Believe me. It's going to come up.
We might have you guys zoom in for another segment on that.
yeah,
one.
you might
Awesome.
need
We're
to
ready.
just come in for that scene.
Maybe
Seen
just
that
10
scene a
minutes
bunch,
on
yeah.
a minute per inch.
Mitch has that scene saved on his phone, so
I don't think we ever
It's your
do
lock
see that. I don't know if we
screen.
ever do see that. Now I'm questioning if we've ever seen it. Have I just seen the Affleck duck stick? Is that what it was?
did you call the Affleck duck the Affleck duck?
Sorry, we're being fools over here. You guys can continue
No,
on with
no,
your
no,
good
no.
Very
podcast.
good. We're just absolutely drinking it in.
We're just enjoying it.
Ben, do you like Seven? I feel like this is a real Haas movie.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Uh-huh.
It's dirty as hell.
Uh-huh.
It's the kind of thing where you smoke weed with your friends later and you like talk about how extremely fucked up it was.
Right. And which would you like want to happen to you? Like if you had to have one of these happen to you or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
you do stuff like that.
Do stuff like that.
Right.
But I watched it again. I guess as you get older, seeing extremely violent things like this and just becoming more and more of a person with people you love in your life, I
Right.
was really
You're upset?
horrified by
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also hits close to home for you because you're engaged with Paltrow. That's a specifically.
Right.
Yes. Well, of course, there's that.
And you live underneath the railway.
Yeah.
I will say though, I had pasta for dinner that night afterwards.
Okay, so
You
you
can't say
were
that.
fine with the spaghetti.
Ben, don't
Yeah.
say that. You'll get canceled. Mitch, what were you about to say?
I was gonna say that it's funny because I agree that it is like I find the ending cruel in many ways, and I like don't want it to
It's
happen.
very cruel.
And
Mhm.
and as a kid, probably thought I was like, "Whoa, this is fucking crazy and cool." But then also as an adult, I've also now I'm not as shocked by Seven because everyone took a page out of its book, of course, and like they're like Fincher was saying, cum in the eye socket or
And-
whatever.
Right. They just show it to you. Right. Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
that both in cinema and then also just in the real world, in our decaying reality of just like the actual horrors you're subjected to. It seems muted by comparison. My one thing, just to I like this movie more on a rewatch, although I had a similar reaction to Ben of just like it is repulsive, it is revolting in a way that I didn't feel when I was younger. But comparing it to Zodiac, which not fair. It's a real world thing, and it's also that's one of my favorite films of all time. So I have a little bit more favoritism towards it. But
You also receive residuals from it, but yeah, go on.
life rates. What I like about Zodiac is that it shows serial killers as we know them to actually be, which is that they're
Yes.
like fucking, they're derivative, they're consumers. They're dumb, you know what I mean? It's like versus here is like, he's a super villain, right? Like he's like the
Yes.
glorification of the serial killer, the John Doe here. He's so many steps ahead of everyone that everything goes according to his plan. And even when there's a little bit of a hiccup, he still manages to get back on track and have the upper hand. He's in control the entire time. And I'm more interested in the dude who, copied his costume from, the film, the adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game, and, uses a
Yes.
code that he stole from a children's book and has fucking dirty dildos and squirrel meat in his decrepit trailer. Like, I feel like that's like closer to the actual psychopath that we see in our reality.
Yeah, I just want to give a Cliff Notes version of what Wiger just said. He likes the Zodiac Killer. Mitch, what were you about to say?
I was gonna say that after watching this movie, I haven't seen it in a long time, but coming out of it, I didn't think that this was his most hopeless movie. I think that I honestly feel like Fight Club was more hopeless. I felt like
Fight
honestly,
Club bums me out more.
Yeah, Fight Club
than
is more of a bummer. I agree.
Fight Club is more of a bummer. I think that honestly, I think Social Network is a huge bummer. It just for the world we live in.
100%.
I mean, like, there's also a speech that Pitt gives at one point. I was trying to figure out where this was, but I wrote down Brad Pitt's speech is kind of hopeful at one point, which is maybe, I think this is before even they've captured Spacey. But like he is a hopeful character. Obviously, at the end, that's
He's
that's
No, but he
that's
thinks
wiped
he
out.
can do good.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
He thinks he's a hero,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he thinks like that's why he wants the job.
Yeah.
For sure. And I know we're headed towards the finish line, but like one of the things that on rewatch is like a scene that really hits, obviously Kevin Spacey having the blood covered shirt and it's Gwyneth Paltrow's blood. But I think the scene where the two of them are just joking around, shaving their chests so they can put the hidden mics that tape their hidden mics to their chest is like knowing what's happened, at that point in the film.
heartbreaking.
Like,
Right.
it's such like a great scene on rewatch.
Yeah.
Well, because they're amped because they think they're cruising to a win.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And they're like, and we stopped the final two from happening.
It was to me, it was this sort of thing of like, man, I remember everything about this movie and then don't remember so much of it at the same time, which was fascinating for a movie I haven't watched probably in over 20 years, to just be like, oh yeah, this is where this happens. And then just picking up the little details, noticing how beautiful it was too, which we
Gorgeous
texted
movie.
about. It looks so great. We didn't even talk about the rain even that much. I mean, we talked about a little bit.
the rain, Mitch.
We talked about the rain. We talked about the rain. But you could talk about the rain forever. It's great.
Well, you sure you
No, but
answer?
I do agree with you guys. It was funny reading all the quotes of people who were just like disgusted by this film on paper. And that within a couple of years,
It's not even that crazy. Like it's just
No.
like what you guys were saying. It doesn't even show that much stuff. Like it's on the and it's a testament to this movie too, that like when you watch like the greatest horror moments of all time, and then Sloth is on there because it's not really a horror movie. It's not from what I remembered it. There's horrible things in it, and there is some imagery, and I love that it like goes into the horror genre, but it's not really gross. It's not there. You're not seeing any of these crimes committed, like you said. It's strange. It's a strange
and
movie.
also
in that
like
way.
within 10 years, like Criminal Minds is covering shit as twisted as this.
Yes.
You know, like it's like beyond even Saw, you know, and
but
like
the thing with Saw even is that Saw 1, you watch it and you're like, wow, this is incredibly restrained.
yeah.
Doesn't really show you much.
Yeah.
It's sort of this, and then you're watching, you know, by the time you're at Saw 5, you're like, oh, there go her boobs, like
Right.
getting ripped off by the big claw. Did you know in Saw
Wait,
3
what-
there's a trap where
Which
someone
Saw is
get-
that, Sims?
in Saw 3 there's a trap where there's pigs getting ground up into slop and a guy drowns in the pig slop?
Jesus.
You know about this?
No, that's the other thing though. They become so cartoony,
Yes.
and then you have stuff like SVU and Criminal Minds that is like so grounded in
It's
like we did
gritty.
the research
Yeah,
and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And then there's like the rise of true crime documentaries, which leads to the rise of true crime podcasts and all this shit. And you're like, yeah, Wiger, there's like the moral decay, as you said, of society, right? That I think makes this movie not feel tamer, but feel less shocking than it did at the time. But I also think that like all of the stuff that's being kind of touched on in this movie has been more normalized. These are no longer conversations that happen behind like closed doors with only the most grizzled people who have basically accepted a monastic life of punishment, needing to know like the greatest evil humanity is capable of. Instead, like my great uncle watches it on CBS at 8:30, you know? And so like I think the thing that maybe makes us hit a little bit harder is the ending, is the final sort of like mental trick of the thing.
Right.
Of like, oh, this has become a moral test, right? I mean, I do just love the John Doe surrendering himself. They give you
Detectives?
just the right amount of information on him. I don't remember if it's Ermi saying or whatever, but they're like, what do we know about this guy? He clearly comes from money. He's got weird resources. He shaved off his fingers, right? And you're kind of expecting like the next 30 minutes, we're going to get a full psychological profile of this guy. We're going to figure out exactly how he did it and how he works. And instead, he's just sitting in the back seat being like, this is all going according to my plan. This is what I wanted. I'm here because I wanted to be here.
Mhm.
And you were like, what the fuck is this guy's game? He gives this self-aggrandizing speech with Pitt, you know, says, you're a t-shirt, you're a movie of the week, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he is proven 100% right.
Yes, and I agree with you that he is proven right, obviously. He enacts his plan.
Yeah.
But there is that moment, with the moment that you quoted to start this episode 50 or 60 hours ago, in which he, it's just a little joke.
Don't give him
feel
comedy
free to laugh.
Don't give him comedy. You don't need to laugh.
Where, you know, he gets nervy. He's
Yes.
like, oh, you think these people were innocent, you know, and that's the only moment where he does feel kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
Where suddenly you're like, oh, right, you are just like crazy.
Yes.
Like, yes, you have resources and this kind of, you know, weird criminal genius or whatever, but you are fundamentally just someone who's like, that disgusting person needed to die.
But
you
that
know.
is that you're like, he did a good job. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Can you cut that out? And
Keep it
just,
in.
no, I'm saying it's
Mitch,
isolated.
to your
and-
point of like you saying that you feel like the Riddler and the Batman is a bad serial killer. I watched this movie and I'm like, this is about as good as I can imagine anyone could be at serial killing.
He's successful.
You know?
He is successful.
I'm not saying I endorse it. I do, but I'm not saying that. But I do watch it and I'm like, this guy played it pretty fucking well.
He did. What he wanted to happen happened. So
Yes.
whether that
Yes.
was worth it, I guess, is maybe a big
Right.
question.
And you read about like all the different alternate endings they pitched, right? Even, you know, leading up to shooting it, Pitt saying, I quit if you don't. Even after they shot it and they test screened it, they were like, can we please reshoot the ending? Because they knew they were going to have to go back to the desert to reshoot the helicopter shit. And it was like, can it be the dog's head in the box?
Sure.
Is that
right.
5 degrees less upsetting to the audience?
It's like 1 million degrees less
Right.
upsetting to the audience.
Right.
Yes.
Can
yes.
it be inside the box is a TV screen showing Gwyneth Paltrow tied in the apartment to a chair?
Box in a box.
Right. And then they go in there and they save her in time. Right. And then even when they were like, no, it has to be her head, then they were like, if it's her head, then Pitt can't shoot him. He needs to be redeemable. He
Right.
can't give in. So it can be that Somerset shoots John Doe to prevent
take
Mills.
the- yeah.
Which I almost
It can
root
be that-
for watching the movie again. I almost
You
root
kind
for
of
that.
are like,
point.
yeah,
you
right,
want
right.
there to be the out. Can it be that Somerset shoots Mills so Mills doesn't shoot him? He doesn't kill Mills, but he stops Mills long enough to not give in. They were just like, is there anything to avoid the double whammy of the head is in the box and he does it? And there isn't.
No, and he's got to do it.
Yeah.
When you're watching the movie, you're like, yeah, you
Yeah.
got to shoot. It's over.
Was this a playground rumor that the baby was in the box, or was that discussed?
I just feel like the playground rumor was that you saw the head,
Right.
as you're sort
Yeah.
of saying about like someone chastising Fincher for it, like, or that there was a version of the movie where you saw the head that we hadn't seen.
There's this insane rumor that circulates around the internet, and I've seen it reported on ostensibly legitimate, reputable outlets that in Contagion, when they do the autopsy of Gwyneth Paltrow,
Yes,
and they like
pull
cut open her head
face down.
Yes.
Oh,
That they
right.
were like, well, it was easy for them to do that because they had the leftover head from Se7en.
Oh wow.
I've seen serious websites.
I mean, it
report
makes
this,
sense to me that people would just make that
Where they were like,
subconscious
right?
connection.
We built the head for Se7en. We never used it, and then Fincher and Soderbergh are friends, and the prop was preserved for 25 years, and then
Yeah.
passed along.
I mean, I love that idea, and that's true, and obviously sometimes is actually true in Hollywood of like, you still got that model from fucking, Star Trek 2?
Sure.
Just go get it and paint it blue. Like it'll be a new spaceship or whatever. Like,
But they also
but they
wouldn't
don't
have,
keep. Yeah,
they
whatever.
wouldn't have built the head from Se7en with the layers
No, they
of
needed to.
musculature.
They needed to. No, they had to make the box really heavy.
The box had to be.
The box had to have the proper weight, not like an empty coffee cup or whatever.
Kevin Spacey probably, as a method actor, demanded,
Mhm.
I can't fake it unless there's a real head in the box. I don't care whose it is.
Just one more thing.
His sleepy thing was just like, this is the peak of him just knowing how to weaponize
The
that.
drawl.
The drawl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. By the way, I just want to give credit to the movie for it won 3 golden popcorns for
Ah.
best movie,
MTV Movie Award.
with Fincher, David Fincher, best villain, Kevin Spacey,
Uh-huh.
won a golden popcorn for best villain, and most desirable male is Brad
Yeah,
Pitt.
so
Wow,
Pitt
okay.
said, like, I think he had won that award for Legends of the Fall, and was like, I need to do a movie like Se7en to disrupt that image, so I stopped being a heartthrob, and
I
then
can't
he
win the golden
still
popcorn.
won the
Right,
award
they were like,
again for
Hachi
Se7en.
Machi!
Yeah.
Throwing
they-
golden popcorn at him. He's like, leave me alone!
Morgan Freeman, the only one who got screwed, because the best duo, Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, were nominated, but they lost to Farley and Spade for Tommy Boy.
I mean,
That's a
a deserving
stacked
loss.
category.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I have a problem with that loss, really.
just the final Pitt shot of him debating whether or not to do it.
Wow, it is a stacked category. Bad Boys, Friday, and Toy Story.
Jesus.
Jeez.
For
Wow.
on-screen duos.
How did Toy Story
Fucking
lose?
Buzz and Woody.
Did Buzz and Woody ever win?
I don't know.
If Buzz and Woody
check.
never
Make
won
your
a golden
point.
popcorn, then that award is a fucking sham.
David, open up 3 more tabs. 99, 2010, 2019. And give me the MTV Movie Awards for each year.
They were nominated again in 2000 for Toy Story 2, Best
Okay.
On-Screen Duo.
And they lost to...
Mike Myers and Vern Troyer for The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Wow.
Dr. Evil and Mini
That's
Me.
tough. Come
Fuck.
on.
Okay, what about 2010?
No, that's it. Those are the only 2 nominations. The award is then turned into Best On-Screen Team
Uh-huh.
and then discontinued after 2006, then brought back in 2013, discontinued again in 2015. The final winner, then they brought it back. They did Duo in 2023,
Okay.
Last of Us. Fuck this.
Jesus.
I hate this
What are we
shit.
doing at this point?
Forky won
The
movie
fuck?
Heartthrob in
Oh, of course.
2019.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, he's got a killer body. No, I think Pitt plays this scene so well. This scene's just so exquisitely
What's in the box?
done. But it's the moment of like the way it plays out. They really do get a lot of value of going to the helicopter shots and having that perspective where they're far enough away and everything's kind of abstracted. And it really creates this weird tension of seeing them in this open, barren space.
Well, it's also, you want it as an, you're like, get me away from this.
Yes.
Like it's sort of a release. You're like, I
Yeah.
can't think about this anymore.
But
Yeah.
like delivery driver comes in with the box. Spacey's sort of just checking his watch, being like, oh, I think it's about to happen. They're far off. He sees it. And it's that moment where like Freeman puts it together, right? There's the
Mhm.
initial shock of just seeing the head in the box. And then when he sort of radios in and goes like, John Doe has the upper hand.
Yeah.
Like he
Right.
immediately
He
figures
gets it.
out what
He
the
gets it
entire
first.
plan
So
is.
good. Yeah.
And you just see Freeman in his head try to calculate, how do I prevent Mills from doing this?
Right.
And he knows it's probably impossible.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And what would happen to Mills? He gets the chair?
No, I think that's
Well,
probably a manslaughter charge. He probably
he probably
pleads
doesn't
guilty.
even get much. He can't be a cop anymore.
Yeah, he's
Doesn't-
definitely
I
done.
mean-
His career is over. His wife is dead.
right.
Right. Somerset says
Probably does
to
10 years in jail.
the chief, like, just make sure he gets everything he wants.
Right.
Make sure you take care of him or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
He would do time
I'm
for
pretty
that?
sure.
That's insane.
I'm pretty sure an active duty cop who
Yes, he would do
executed a
time for it.
suspect would go to prison for some time.
But like yes, it would be some kind of lesser. Yeah, I would assume. I mean, I guess he shoots him in cold blood, but he murdered his wife, put her head in a box.
Yeah.
And also done various other elaborate murders.
Yeah.
And also he's kind of funny looking.
Yeah. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you think Mills pulls the trigger if Doe doesn't drop the thing about the baby?
Yes, probably. But obviously that's the whatever.
Right.
You know, the coup de grace.
Right.
But he probably fucking shoots him. He's got a gun right there.
But he's holding on to a certain amount of restraint. And then it's
Yeah.
like Doe genuinely seems to not know that Mills didn't know.
And Spacey's delight at that. I was like, oh, you did.
I know, it's so nasty.
man.
And it's
so
also just the fact that, like, in that moment, that's the thing that gets Somerset to slap him, which belies that Somerset knew.
Yeah.
And also
So there's the
confirms that the
weird
head's in the
betrayal
box.
of that.
Because he's trying to get him to say, like, tell me
What's
it's
in
not
the
in
box?
there.
Yeah.
Somerset doesn't want to lie to him, but that's finally the give. So, like, that one reveal collapses Mills's entire world, where it's like, she was pregnant. I didn't know. He knew. That means her head's in there. She's dead. The baby's gone. My whole future's gone. And then Pitt just has that one fucking shot that I feel like is still, like, memed all the time, where he goes through, like, 10 reactions in 3 seconds.
Yes.
And Pitt at this
A
point,
classic gif at this point.
at this point in his career, where he was always putting a lot of mustard on it, and I think when he was well cast as an actor, it was because people were playing into his desperation to be taken seriously. And a lot of these roles where he's kind of playing the junior to a more august movie star, leading man.
Ford,
Right.
And Robert Redford. Yeah.
I feel like that's the first moment of Pitt's career as an actor where he starts to tap into what he's going to actually have full control over, like 10, 15 years later.
I agree. Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is a quote unquote immature performance from him in a way.
Yeah.
But it's a good performance. And it's the start of.
Yeah. And that moment's just so skillful.
I love him in that moment.
It's good. It's the perfect. I mean, it's the perfect movie at the perfect time for both Fincher and Pitt, and their career trajectories are obviously forever affected.
I wish to go back to the MTV Movie Awards. I wish that it was William Shatner's head in the box, because it just would have been.
You wish that it was William Shatner's head in the box?
That's in the MTV Movie Awards. That's what happens. Did you see it?
Really?
Are you
that was
talking
the
about
gag?
the 1995 MTV Movie Awards?
Yeah,
Who was hosting?
I think Shatner.
Looks like the
That's good.
looks like the hosts were, oh my God, John Lovitz and Courtney Cox. Jesus, what a fucking combo. But no, wait, I think the Se7en.
That's
Wait.
so funny.
Oh
That
no, the
rocks.
Se7en Awards. I'm sorry, were the year after. That was 95.
Okay.
It was John Lovitz and Courtney Cox, the dynamic duo.
Yeah.
96 was hosted by Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo.
Oh,
That's
of
good.
course.
A good combo.
Yeah.
Better combo.
By the way,
Uh-huh.
Courtney Cox and John Lovitz definitely fucked,
Oh,
right?
Jesus.
I don't mean this as a joke. I 100% believe there is no way they didn't.
Yes, I don't remember that joke. Why would it be Shatner? I don't get it.
He was such a punchline kind of guy. Like, it's that era of Conan bringing out
And
like
he would,
Mr.
like,
T
do
or
anything.
Shatner
Yeah.
Right.
as like a quick visual punchline.
I watched it last night. I'll give you a little bit more.
You watched the MTV Movie Awards parody?
Oh, yeah, I watched the MTV Movie Awards parody last night. The delivery driver is a green alien babe instead of like Arquette. I know it's one of the Arquettes. That
Whoa,
does
what's the time code on this one?
Does it cut in with the actual movie footage, or did they shoot both sides of it?
I think they definitely cut it into the movie footage.
Okay, got it.
And then Shatner's head is in the box, and then he sings a song.
That's good.
That's pretty good.
When I was young and I would watch those, I could not comprehend the technical wizardry of how well the new footage they shot cut in with the old footage.
Yeah,
Where I was just like, this
Yeah.
feels impossible. How the fuck are they matching this?
yeah. It
And
kind
I
of looks like
wonder
shit.
if it's a thing. That's my question. If I rewatch it now, would it all look like bullshit to me?
I mean, I think they do a good job with like the location. They get like a brown grass location or whatever. So and then it's Shatner is playing every role. He's playing.
Oh, that's good.
This is what it is. He's playing Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt and Kevin
Okay.
Spacey. And
And
then
the
when they
box.
open the box, he's the head in the box.
He's in there.
That's good.
which maybe
All right.
made people think that you see the head in the box. I maybe think that there is some connection to that.
Maybe that's why.
Shatner effect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this when I get home.
Yeah.
Before we do the box office game, I do want to point out that this movie did so well that they wanted Andrew Kevin Walker has a
Yes.
script called 8mm, which of course was turned into a movie.
Yes.
But they initially wanted to try and repurpose that and have Morgan Freeman be in that movie as Somerset.
Wild.
Like they're just like, we'll just do a 7 sequel, 8mm,
Yeah.
and it'll be fucking just Somerset doing a new crime. That'll be it. And even though this movie has like an ending,
Yes.
like it is over.
8mm is a movie I would argue is almost more bleak and depraved than this film.
Yeah.
And
it
it's
is.
wild that movie, whatever it is, 2 years later,
Yeah.
gets like a $60 million budget and is made by like Paramount.
Yeah.
Where suddenly this thing had become like a script that no studio would touch, where they were like, please give us the next 7.
There's also a film called Solace that did
Okay.
eventually get released.
So Ted Griffin
Yeah.
was the main writer on Ocean's 11 and a ton of other
It's got
movies.
Anthony Hopkins and Colin Farrell. I've never seen
Wolf
it.
of Wall Street.
Yeah.
He writes a script called Solace.
Yeah.
That's about a
guy hunting a
detective
serial
tracking
killer.
a serial
Yeah.
killer where there's a psychic element.
Sure.
And New Line buys it, Die Hard with a Vengeance style, and says, can we rewrite this to make it into a 7 sequel?
Right.
Which they title EI numeral 8 HT.
Great.
I
Cool.
swear to you.
Yeah.
There's an Ain't It Cool story that runs that is New Line desperately wants to make 8. All 3 guys go, absolutely not.
Right.
I think it really would have just come down to Fincher and Morgan Freeman. I don't know what role Pitt would have played in this, but they did finally make that movie 5-6 years ago with Anthony Hopkins and your boyfriend Colin Farrell.
Yes. It's a Farrell film I've never seen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to be very good.
No.
By the way, the trailer for The Killer came out today.
It sure did. Looks fucking great to
I haven't
me.
seen it yet.
And Mitch, I know you wanted to mention this. It will be out of date by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah.
Just yesterday was the birthday of 2 people very important to this episode
It's true.
who we didn't know shared a birthday.
Yeah.
Nicholas Wiger and the Finchman.
The Finchman and Wags birthdays yesterday.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Wags.
Thanks, buddy.
Fincher turned
Happy
60.
birthday to the Finchman.
Wiger turned 65.
Waiting for someone to do that.
I've heard someone who's seen The Killer and they say that it's great. I'm very excited about it.
I'm so excited.
I've heard good things about The Killer. I'm very excited to see it.
Also an Andrew Kevin Walker script, right? Did we mention that?
I believe he is involved. He's done a lot of movies with Fincher. Like he done a lot of rewrites for him too.
Mhm.
Like I think he is the screenwriter. All right, Griff. This movie and Nick and Mitch. This movie opened September 22nd, 1995.
Any final thoughts?
7 out of 10. Pretty good. I don't know. I mean,
It was
do I
seventh at the
need-
box office, 7th highest grossing
It's
film.
true.
That is true.
7th highest grossing film
Don't
of
be looking up the
95.
box
Oh, that's
office. You're
funny.
going to ruin it.
I that's the
No,
I
no,
just
that's
saw it
for
as
the
a fun
year. That's
fact.
for the
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
That's for
yeah.
the year. I want to open the floor if you guys, if there was anything else you want to say before we play the box office game, but no pressure.
I don't think there's anything I've missed. I mean, I watched Clute over the weekend because I know that both Fincher and Darius Kanji, the DP, had cited that as an inspiration. It is like, I love the look of this movie. We maybe didn't talk enough about that, but it's just like how much it lives in the shadow, how dark it is, which was a criticism of the time, but how much they're just the idea of directing the audience's eyes via flashlights is such a neat trick that they do repeatedly. It's
all copied. That's the thing. It's like this movie's so copied.
The bleach bypass thing.
It doesn't
the
look
technique
bad
they
at all.
use.
Like it doesn't hurt
No.
this movie for
Yeah.
me, but
Yes.
it is very just
But it
profoundly.
basically took out most of the midtones and most of the colors.
Right.
So you have like kind of jet ink blats
Yeah.
and then the silvers in the whites.
My last shout out is just that the backwards credits are cool, and then that song
Yeah.
"Guilty" by Gravity Kills, because I know that they opened it up with the 9 Inch Nails kind of remix
Yeah,
of whatever Closer maybe, but then
Yeah, Closer.
that song the "Guilty" by Gravity Kills I remember being like a song I really liked.
yeah.
Right around then, 13 years old or whatever, getting into that kind of more dark.
We talk
music
about
now.
this in our Fight Club episode coming up. I am sort of surprised that this movie did not get a decade later ill-advised video game adaptation in like 2004.
Oh man,
should
it
do it
should
now.
have.
Yeah, they did make
Doesn't
a
it
Fight Club
feel like
game.
that would have happened?
They should do it
Nick?
now. You collect clues. You put like pages in a book or something.
Right.
But that era of like the Godfather games,
Yeah.
100%.
the Fight Club game. Yeah.
You would like end up fighting gluttony or whatever too, I'm sure. Like would
Yeah.
be what the game is. But
Right.
Shoot meatballs into his mouth.
sign me up. I'll do the mocap for that. 7 out of 7 for me.
7 out of 7.
7 out of 7. Good,
Wow.
good. Yeah. Do you like it?
I do. I think it's great. Yeah. Look, it's not one of my favorite Fincher movies, but I think I disproportionately prefer the latter half of his career.
I do too, but this is
I
kind
don't
of right in
dislike
the
the
middle
early
there for me.
films, but
No. Yeah.
I think we're on the same page. Yeah, top half of his output for me. My top 3 is Zodiac, Social Network, Gone Girl. I think those are
Yes.
1, 2, 3 for me. But
Same,
I
bro.
basically agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's impressive that he has evolved this much, that this now feels like middle tier Fincher, because this is very much the kind of movie that someone spends a career chasing.
Chase.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Right?
And like I like the game. I like Panic Room. I like Fight Club, the Fight
Sure.
Club, but the game and Panic Room feel like movies
Mhm.
that are kind of chasing 7.
Right.
I kind of like both more than 7 sometimes. Not always. Like they're kind of all in the same world for me. But I do feel like
Yeah.
for a while that kind of was his rep, where
Yes.
it's like, yeah, he still makes good movies, but like it's kind of tough to top 7.
And it was one of those things where the check was just so big they were going to let him keep making movies because from the director of 7 was
Right.
not running out
And
in
then to
terms
me,
of
it's like
value.
when he made Zodiac, I was just like,
Yeah, that was the holy shit, I didn't know this guy had this in him. And then he just sort of levels up to a whole nother
All
whole
right.
nother thing. Okay,
All right.
box office.
September 22nd,
You said-
1995. Wow. Don't
Doorbell?
ring the bell.
Wait, where did that come
Hold
from?
on one second.
Did you hear that?
Doughboys, I'm sorry. Something very real is happening in our studio right now.
It's coming from the closet.
Oh,
Something
okay, wait,
super
hold on one
off-
second.
It's definitely real
Ben is
and
walking
not
over. This
planned.
is very real.
It's always so good when Ben goes to the bathroom.
There's a naturalism happening in this studio right now,
It's
not
opening.
seen since Spacey played the photographer at the
It would
crime
be
scene.
so scary if someone. Okay,
Okay,
there's
Ben
a box.
has a box. Ben
Ben,
is
you have to
taking a
just let the
box
Doughboys see this
out of the closet. Yeah, Ben, come on camera. Jesus
Yeah, you
Christ.
can't-
Don't
you
fucking
can't
not
do
do
this.
this for...
whatever the
I just
hell
want to make it
is you're
clear,
doing.
we don't know what this
I
is.
need to go
we were
home
not keyed
soon.
into this.
Mhm,
Ben
yep.
is now standing in front. Can you guys
wow.
see this?
oh wow.
Ben has a box
Wow, what's
and a pair of
in that
scissors.
box?
We don't know what's in the
in the
box. Ben, what's in the box? Okay.
Ben's cutting open the
Ooh,
box.
using some scissors.
Ben is
Fully work
wearing
here.
a wig and doing a weird accent, kind of like playing up a kind of New York tough guy thing.
Guys, what's in the box?
Okay, there's an envelope that says David and Griffin.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Oh, is there something underneath there?
yeah, maybe
Okay,
maybe
Ben
maybe I should
looks
maybe should
very
open up that
shocked.
envelope.
Yeah, open up that envelope.
Maybe
yeah.
maybe see what's in the envelope.
There was a very nuanced
All right. What's in the fucking envelope?
reaction to whatever Ben just saw in the box. Okay, and then inside is a note. It says, I visited your studio this morning. I tried to taste the life of a simple podcaster. It didn't work out, so I played my own box office game and took her lovely bobblehead. Signed John Doe, and it's Dough.
Good.
Okay, Ben, what's
What's in the box?
what's in the box, Ben?
It's okay. So it's surprisingly
Oh
hard to
my
find
God.
a Gwyneth Paltrow action figure.
Oh my god.
We settled on
Did you
a
guys send this?
rip-off Funko Pop figurine of
this is of course
Pepper
a Minico
Potts,
hero.
a Minico hero of Pepper Potts as Rescue from Avengers Endgame.
Wait,
So
this
there
is
you
not
go.
a Ben bit? This is a Wigs bit?
This is a
This
Doughboys
is
Ben
a
collab.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did we get the Happy Meal box or that?
No, we didn't get the Happy Meal box. We were going to send it in a Happy
We're
Meal
going to
box.
send it in
but
a Happy Meal box.
we were worried it was
Oh,
going
that
to be
would have been
confusing.
funny.
We also were going
That
to
would've
like
been
cut
funny.
off the head of the doll, but
Yeah.
then we got it and we're like, it's kind of, maybe they want it. I don't know.
The there
Resale
was a
value on this
perfect
might be
Gwyneth
catching.
Paltrow head as Pepper Potts, but it
Yeah.
costs
Good
like $600.
There's a really expensive bust. And
Yeah.
Really?
we didn't
Yeah.
wanna go
Let
that
me
far.
see this.
Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah, geez, has she never played another? I guess she really hasn't. That's not really her vibe. You're not getting a Sylvia Plath doll.
No, I think Funko made Royal Tannenbaum stuff.
did
That
they?
looks so much like her. One of those laser accurate Funko likenesses. You know,
Yeah,
the
of
light
course.
in the
Think
eye.
about a Funko.
So are you both crushed for life?
Yeah, this is going to ruin us
What's in
forever.
the box?
Yeah, David and I are gonna shoot each
Can't
other.
believe this doll is pregnant. That's the strangest part.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Yeah, don't
now
kill
play
producer Ben.
the
I was
box
kind of hoping that a
office
metronome
game.
was going to be in the
office
box.
game.
What's
That'd
in the box office game?
David is so upset. I feel
Oh.
so bad.
be September
Sims is
22nd. No,
furious.
I'm very happy about this, to be clear. It is a little frightening, but just her likeness is a little frightening.
Do you want me to do it again, though, and you guys could really sell it?
September 22nd, 1995.
I
This
just
film
can't believe that the
is
bobblehead
opening.
also
I'm
smells
just
like her
talking over
vagina.
you.
That it also has
oh,
the
boy.
scent.
Joke
Is that
about
like a
goop, guys.
licensing demand for all
Okay.
products?
Okay, so Se7en is opening to $13.9 million, Griffin, which is a sign of just how good its legs were because it made 100
Yeah, wow.
domestic.
And it
It
made
also-
another 150 overseas.
It made 228 overseas. It was such a just smash
is
hit
three-
overseas.
330 total.
Correct.
Absurd.
Yes. Massive hit, but also, in America, all fall and winter, I
Right.
feel like Se7en was just
Like
doing
September
really well.
Dumping ground.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. As evidenced by the film opening at number 2 at the box office,
Okay.
Griffin, that is getting dumped to hell.
Now you said
We have
covered this
covered
weekend
it
before.
on this podcast.
Is it number 2? Number 2 is the one that's getting dumped to hell. So it's what
It's opening to $8 million.
it's one of the bigger flops we've covered on the show.
Yes, and it was hoping for major shock value, much like Se7en, propelling it to box office success.
Are you joking or seriously?
Serious.
It was hoping for major shock.
It is a somewhat beloved film, but at the time despised.
95.
Yes,
It is somewhat beloved.
it's fairly beloved at this point.
Give me what studio made it.
MGM.
It was an MGM release in 1995. It is called Showgirls.
It is Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls.
Wow.
That opened against Se7en.
Wild.
Wow.
Hey, can I take my 5-year-old to see a movie this week? What's Hollywood got for me? Showgirls is
Showgirls.
opening at a fairly bad $8 million. It's only on 1,300 screens, I think, because it was rated NC-17.
Here is
Yes.
an honest question.
Yeah.
Which film has a bleaker view of humanity?
Showgirls. That's
Right?
That's not even.
It's Showgirls.
That's not even close.
Right.
In Showgirls, it's like the people who are your friends are trying to push you down the stairs.
Yes.
Like, it's not just serial killers.
Yeah.
Showgirls, big bomb. Okay, number 3 at the box office. It's a comedy, Griffin, starring 3 action heroes,
Is it To Wong Fu? Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar.
Wow.
which has
I mean,
been
how
number
many-
1 2 weeks in a row
Sure.
and is now dropping to 3.
You said comedy starring 3 action stars.
Right, exactly.
I think about like how pointed the
I
casting
know
of that movie
Leguizamo
was.
is a stretch as a star,
Yeah,
I
but
guess.
you-
But
you
he's, he
conveyed
was
the idea.
Luigi for crying out
Yeah.
loud.
For sure.
That's another project, like the opposite of fucking Se7en, where they offered it to everyone and everyone said, please commit yourself to an insane asylum for even
Right.
recommending the script to me. You read about how hard everyone was fighting to get those roles into Wong Fu.
Hot script.
Like in a fairly homophobic age of Hollywood.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
whatever reason, at that moment, every A-list actor was like, I think this is going to be the big project.
Right.
They were batting people off like flies.
Spielberg was briefly, he
Yes.
was never going to direct it, but like at least like, shepherding it. And I
But the
think that helped.
conception was
Yeah.
always like 3 humongous leading men.
You won't believe it.
Yeah.
They're drag queens, and this is the longest title a movie will ever have.
Yes. And then people were astonished that it flopped.
Yeah, right. Although it was number 1 for 2 weeks in a row, but
Well.
in the doldrums of September.
Yeah.
It's made $24 million
Okay.
in 3 weeks. Okay, number 4 is a star-driven drama, sort of inspirational drama. Most famous for a song that is associated
Dangerous
with
Minds.
it. It's Dangerous Minds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn, Griff.
Of course.
Quick with
Gangsta's
that one.
Paradise.
You guys were talking
what he does.
about High School High in a recent episode.
Yeah.
It is a movie. We were talking about a different film. I was going to invoke some, but it was we were talking about it off mic before the episode. That is a movie I defended vigorously when I was 15 years old, and I'm worried if I watched it today, I would commit myself to jail for having that opinion.
That movie,
Speaking
like
of
some
love it.
movies from your childhood you watch and you're like, oh, this hasn't aged well. That movie, the poster hasn't aged well.
This is the thing. You guys were saying that, and I remember watching it and thinking, look, it knows it's dancing on a very thin line,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I thought it was skillfully satirizing a very, very sensitive subgenre that emerged in the mid-90s, and I wonder if I would feel that way today.
Very droll, John.
Yes.
And then this is the poster.
Yes.
This is,
That poster is insane.
Is it
he
John?
has a pick in his afro.
I know, and a bullet flying through the afro, and
Oh,
the title of the
boy.
movie is shaved
You know
into
what?
his
And
hair.
the fucking tagline is there's a new teacher, spelled teach with an A, in the hood.
Did Jim Abrahams direct that?
No, Hart Bachner directed it.
Did Jim Abrahams produce it or write it?
David Zucker wrote it.
Okay.
You're-
I knew it had a Zucker
It
affiliation.
locked him in for those MTV Movie Awards hosting jobs, though. With
It did.
was it Courtney
Sure
Love or was it who was it? Was
Courtney
Courtney
Cox.
Cox.
Courtney
and
Cox?
John
Okay,
Lovitz.
that makes
Yes.
way more sense.
Yes.
I think John Lovett's probably fuck Courtney Cox.
They
and
want-
Courtney Love.
They want to take that. They
I
were
think-
trying to
I
take
think
that
both of them.
show on the road. Lovitz and Cox.
Yes.
Number 5 at the box office is a serious, more serious drama about teenage violence in the inner city from one of our great auteurs.
Are you being facetious?
No,
or-
I'm not.
It's
That's
more
what it is.
serious.
Yeah, it's like a crime drama.
In 1995, from one of our great auteurs.
Yes. Good movie.
It's a good movie.
Yep. Based on a book.
What city is it set in?
New York City. Heard of that?
Yeah,
City?
I have.
The
heard of it.
Big Apple.
What studio released this picture?
This studio was, of course, Universal.
It's a Universal 1995.
Mhm.
The Youths Are in Trouble movie.
A kid is in trouble,
One kid.
but it's a cop movie. Well, I mean, kid, the teens of Brooklyn, I guess, but it's about a kid, a teenager.
It's based on a book. It's about a teenager.
You maybe have never seen this movie.
It's not A Boy's Life.
Nope.
Huh. I've maybe never seen it, but
I
you
don't know.
love this movie?
I really like this movie.
It's about a kid.
I haven't seen it since I was in college.
Tell me something about the director of this picture.
It's a totemic voice in American cinema.
It's a totemic voice in American cinema.
Yes.
Hmm.
Important to this day. It's often underappreciated.
Often underappreciated.
Won an Oscar in the last decade. His first Oscar.
Is it Spike Lee?
Spike Lee.
In 95. What am I forgetting? Which movie this
People
would?
kind of forget about this movie.
Brooklyn?
Nope. Great movie.
It's not Clockers.
Clockers.
Oh, you love
Clockers.
Clockers.
Yes.
I've never seen Clockers.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Based on Richard Price's novel, starring Harvey Keitel and Mekhi Phifer.
It is a bit of a forgotten Spike.
It's really good.
Man, I'm just
Yeah.
all I can think about is what the Se7en murderer would do to Jay Sherman. Like he'd really.
So many sins. He wouldn't know where to begin with Jay Sherman.
I think John Lovitz fucked Jay Sherman, by the way, too.
John Lovitz is going to sue us weirdly. We're like, Spacey's going to be after us. Spacey doesn't notice us. Lovitz issues a takedown or something.
I know
Look,
what
just
Jay
need to
Sherman would
say it.
think of what the Se7en killer would do to him. You think
I need to just
stinks.
say
what-
He
what-
would think
yeah,
it
it
stinks.
stinks.
Clearly,
He would think
I
it's
thought you were
stank.
gonna
I know
say
he
it.
would think of the gluttony crime scene. It stank for sure.
I need to just get this out of my system. My father, avidly read the New York Post when I was growing up,
Yeah.
was a fiend for Page 6.
Right.
And I remember him excitedly telling me one morning that my dad would wake me up with news.
Yes.
You won't believe what I just read in the paper.
Right.
And it was, what's her name? Janice Dickinson,
Uh-huh.
the supermodel,
Uh-huh.
wrote a tell-all book,
Yeah.
listed all the men she had slept with.
Sure. She's the one who famously started the Liam Neeson as a huge
Yes.
penis.
Yeah.
An
And said
avian
John
butter
Lovitz-
fell out of his pants.
Jesus.
Right.
Said John Lovitz was the best sex she ever had.
Absolutely outrageous.
That's
And
insane.
I can never not think about it.
Number 6 is
Jealous?
Diane Keaton's directorial effort, Unstrung Heroes.
Oh, sure.
You got The Usual Suspects, so it's the fall of Spacey.
Wow.
You got
Space.
Hackers,
Uh-huh.
Hack the Planet. You got Babe,
Uh-huh.
and you have Braveheart. So 2 Best Picture nominees
Wow.
hanging out
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
At the bottom there. Number 11, of course, Ben and I's favorite film of 1995, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat! Dun, 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 dun.
Hell yeah.
This is like such middle school. This is like the start of middle school for me.
That's
This
what
is-
I'm saying.
this is
And then
huge.
7 has a cool opening with the New Line logo, and then but in Mortal Kombat, the New Line logo is accompanied by someone screaming "Mortal Kombat," so it's better.
Sure.
Yeah, sick as hell.
New Line should have done that for the full year, 95, to
Just
commemorate.
every movie they release. They should do
Yeah.
it for Lord of the Rings.
They should.
Mortal Kombat.
What has better fatalities, 7 or Mortal Kombat?
That's a great question.
Great question.
I think Mortal Kombat's fatalities are really good.
Yeah.
They
You
are
see
really
them
good.
more so than 7. Yeah.
How do you think Scorpion got his name?
How do I think Scorpion got his name? He probably, went to AC, got a tattoo.
That's what I figured.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Call
Take
back
us out.
to an off mic bit.
Mhm.
Hey, Doughboys, thank you for being here.
Thank
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for doing this.
What a treat. I wish we could have made this happen in person, but lovely that we were at least in the same spaces. in
Next
different
time.
Next
We've
time.
gotten
something
foiled
to,
Next time.
every time.
Yeah.
'Cause I
something
think
to aspire to.
we've the four of us combined as this configuration have done 3 Doughboys eps, 3 blank check eps, and we've never gotten all 4 of us in the same room at the same time.
That's right.
It's true.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's
It's
fucked
yet
up.
to happen.
Yeah.
It's fucked
We'll
up.
figure
It's
it out.
genuinely fucked up. But Doughboys is the best podcast
God bless.
in the world
It
of all
is.
time.
That's a mirror.
We say it all the time. Truly feel it. It's the high watermark.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's not listening to it and listening to our show is dumb. Has their priorities out of whack.
Hey, Mitch.
Yeah.
It's Ben. I've been watching the hell out of Twisted Metal.
Oh, there you go.
hell yeah.
I know
It fucking rocks, man.
Mitch is contractually.
Mitch can't say anything about
he
that.
cannot
I appreciate
legally talk
that,
about
though. That is
but he
very-
can appreciate. That's really
I very
nice.
much appreciate it.
Yeah.
That rules. Thank you,
I'm
Ben.
talking about the video game on PlayStation.
You're just watching it?
Ben's watching
makes
Let's
my day.
Plays.
I think it's allowed if it comes out of nowhere, right?
It is a Ben Ash show. I will say, having seen it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Ben. Thank you. You rule.
that rocks, Ben.
I guess, but that's it.
That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you, guys. And we'll see you next week on Blank Check for the game with Brendan Hines.
With Brendan Hines,
Yeah.
our old friend Brendan Hines returning to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a fun app.
It's a fun app. Yeah, we recorded 15 years ago.
Yep. I don't even know who I am anymore.
Nope.
Goodbye. I don't know why I'm taking
That's
us
not how
out.
this show ends.
Exactly.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media helping to produce the show.
Wags and I are gonna go. Wags and I are gonna go grab some lunch. I think we're gonna get some. We're gonna eat some pasta sauce.
And then kick each other in the stomach and see who can last longer. Thank you to JJ Birch for our research. Thank you to Leigh Montgomery and the Grid American All for our theme song, AJ McKeon and Alex Barron for our editing, Joe Bow and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. It's been a while since I've done this. You can go to blankcheckpodcast.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including our Patreon, Blank Check special features where we do franchise commentaries. We're doing the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies right now. We'll also be doing a Fincher music video episode this month. I believe will be this month. I want to say this month.
I want to say this month.
But I also think we unlock Patreon episodes after 3 years. So soon to be unlocked are commentaries on the Alien franchise, which coincidentally times out pretty perfectly to us having just done Alien 3 again.
And it is going to actually land next month in October.
Look at that. A very spooky Fincher music video Halloween for all of you. Tune in next week for The Game with Brandon Hines. And once again, I just want to say...
Cut all of this.